go.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call to order the Board of Supervisors meeting for June the 20th, 2017. Roll call.
Supervisor Foy.
After last night.
Supervisor Long.
Here.
Supervisor Bennett.
Here.
Supervisor Parks.
Here.
Supervisor Zaragoza.
Here. Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item is minutes of the June 13 meeting. It's a pleasure of the board. And first and a second, please vote. And that's approved. Item number 5, agenda review. Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Chair Zaragoza. Okay, so you remember how last night we talked about how big the county is? Right? So, likewise, our agenda is big. So we have almost 80 items, and it's the last meeting of the year, so a lot of work going into this. And the good news is we don't have
our fiscal year.
Oh, the fiscal year. Don't get too excited. He's a happy guy. Next meeting is July 18th. That's right. I owed you one. So we have a few items. Item 13, CEO's Office. Approval of a contract for lobbyist services with Platinum Advisors. A board letter and Exhibit 1 have been submitted. Item 17, Fire Protection District. Approval of the Fourth Amendment to the contract for Automated Systems Status Management System and the Fourth Amendment to the Second Amended and Restated Services Contract. A board letter, Fourth Amendment, and Fourth Amendment to the Second Amendment and Restated Services Contract have been submitted. Item 18, Fire Protection. Authorization for the purchasing agent to execute the First Amendment to County Contract Number 6590 to continue providing maintenance services for the simulcast radio systems. Revised agenda title only on page 5. Item 19 is Healthcare Agency. Approval of the amendment to the Whole Person Care Agreement. A board letter and Exhibits 1 through 2 have been submitted. In addition, on agenda page 5, agenda title was updated to reflect the board letter, and this is additional funding for the Whole Person Care Project. Item 24, Healthcare Agency, Behavioral Health, authorization for the Ventura County Behavioral Health Director to sign the agreement for collaborative education services with Aspirinet, revised agenda title only on page 7. Item 26, Healthcare, Behavioral Health, authorization for the Behavioral Health Director to sign agreements with Casa Pacifica, a revised board letter has been submitted. Public Works, confirmation of the professional services contract modifications numbers 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 for project management services on the Ventura County Medical Center Hospital Replacement Wing Project with RG Group Global, Inc. A board letter and Exhibits 1 through 9 have been submitted. Item 50, Supervisor Parks, presentation of a resolution celebrating the launch of the Dementia-Friendly Ventura County. A PowerPoint has been submitted. Item 51, Supervisor Long, presentation of a resolution and certificates honoring Adolfo Camarillo High School Varsity Softball Team CIF 2017 Championship. Request removal from the agenda. Item 53, CEO's Office, public hearing regarding adoption of an amendment to the 2016-19 MOA with Local 721 of SEIU. Revised agenda title on page 13, and correspondence from the Civil Service Commission has been submitted. Item 56, CEO's Office, receive and file a study session on homelessness. A board letter and Exhibits 1 through 2 have been submitted. Item 64, Public Works, public hearing regarding proposed sewer service charges and sewer standby charges for fiscal year 2017-18. For County Service Area Number 29, a board letter, resolution, and Exhibit 1 have been submitted. Item 71, County Council, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation. Addenda items, consent agenda, CEO's Office, authorization for the risk manager to purchase and sign necessary contracts, policies, or amendments for excess liability insurance in excess of $1 million self-insured retention. Item 75, Public Works, approval of the plans and specification, including addendum number 1 for Callegas Creek of Upland Road sediment removal, and authorization for the Public Works Agency Director to negotiate and award a maintenance contract provided that the contract does not exceed the engineer's estimate of $2.2 million by more than 15%. Exhibits 1 through 4 have been submitted, and just to be clear, this is Public Works Watershed Protection District. Regular agenda. Item 76, Board of Supervisors. Direction to the CEO to hold a Board of Supervisors hearing on July 18th regarding the Ventura County Resource Conservation District, budget and finances, and to not disperse any budgeted general fund support to the RCD until the CEO and the board have conducted their due diligence review of the RCD. Prior correspondence from the RCD has been submitted. And closed session agenda, 2 items. 77, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. And finally, item 78, public employee employment, title public defender. And other than that, no changes.
It's a little long.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any concerns or revisions, removals, or?
You want Mike to read that one?
Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board? Get a motion? And a second. Please vote. Okay, that's been approved. Our next item is moment of inspiration. It's really great. I really want to share this resolution that I'd like to give to Manny Lopez. Unfortunately, Manny Lopez couldn't be here this morning, not feeling well, but we have a really great substitute that's going to help us out, and that's Marissa Lopez. But Marissa, and Tiffany too. But let me share a couple of words here before then. But I'll be right down with you. It says, good morning, board members. And it's really an honor for me to be sharing this with Dr. Lopez and his 90th birthday. But unfortunately, he's not feeling well today. But he sends the best to talk for him and represent him. Manny Lopez, I've had the opportunity of working with Dr. Lopez as a council member for the city of Oxnard. In fact, one of the things that I shared the other day was when it was a swearing-in ceremony, and I just raised my right hand and accepted my position as a council member for Oxnard. So then it was Manny's turn, and when he turned around, at that time he says, "You got to pick then a mayor pro tem." So I'm raising my hand, and I'm kind of a little scared, a little nervous, and so forth. He says, "My mayor pro tem is John Zaragoza," and I go, "Whoa." That was my first initiation. I was really proud to serve with Dr. Lopez for many, many years. So from there on, I was mayor pro tem for 4 years for the city of Oxnard. But I just want to thank Manny. And again, this resolution does really not do justice to Manny, but I'm gonna read it anyway. This is resolution from the Board of Supervisors for Dr. Lopez on the occasion of his 90th birthday for his dedication to the city of Oxnard and for the residents of Ventura County. Whereas Dr. Lopez was born in 1927 in Oxnard, California, to Manuel and Isabel Martinez Lopez, and was educated locally, where he attended Ventura Community College, the University of California, Berkeley, and the University of California, Berkeley, optometry, and began his optometry practice in Oxnard in 1962. Whereas Dr. Lopez married Irma Luna, and together they raised 2 beautiful children, 2 daughters, Marissa and Tiffany, who are right in front of us today. It's 11 grandchildren, great-grandchildren of 9, and great-father of 10. He says, whoa. So whereas Dr. Lopez has been a lifelong supporter and participant of local civic and nonprofit organizations, including the Oxnard Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Oxnard Elks Lodge, the Oxnard Optimist Club, the Trade Club of Oxnard, Oclotan, Mexico Sister City Committee, the founding member of United Way Board, Oxnard Boys and Girls Club of Oxnard and Port Hueneme, the founder and chair of the Veterans Memorial Committee in Oxnard, and also he was in the University of Channel Islands Foundation and founding member in the Ventura County Community Foundation, just to name a few. And whereas Dr. Lopez began his government work since 1965, over a half a century, and he was a member of the Oxnard Community Relations Commission, the Oxnard Planning Commission, the Oxnard Housing Authority Commission, the Oxnard Redevelopment Agency, and then he was elected to the Oxnard City Council in 1978. And was also designated pro tem at the time mayor pro tem from 1980 to 82, and 84 to 86. And then in 1992, he was elected mayor of the city of Oxnard and held that position until 2004. Whereas Dr. Lopez was elected to the Oxnard Harbor Commission in 2008. He's not quit yet, he's still there. And whereas Dr. Lopez has been recognized for his lifelong dedication to the Oxnard community by being named Oxnard 1991 Distinguished Citizen of the Year, and it was awarded the 1992 Patrick Henry Award, and in 2002, the Oxnard College named a clock tower after Dr. Lopez. Now, therefore, be resolved, the County of Ventura Board of Supervisors commends and congratulates Dr. Lopez for the occasion of his 90th birthday and offer the best wishes for his joyous celebration and surrounded by his loving family and friends here today. And Marissa, you'd like to say a couple of words, and I'll go down and give you this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zaragoza. It means so much to my father, Manuel Lopez, and our family and friends who are here to receive this honor. I listened to everything that you read, and growing up, I've heard that. By the time I came into his life, he was 52 years old, and he had done many of those things that you mentioned. And I think as a child, growing up and coming to many of these meetings, can you imagine he brought me to all of these. So I was 2 years old, 3 years old, 7 years old. Even as a naughty teenager, I still would come to these. And listening to that, I realized how much of an impact he's had on not only, of course, me and our family, but on so many people across this county. And I think as we look at what's happening in the country and in the world, we realize that change happens locally, and that's something that he's always believed, and he's always instilled in me and so many other people across this county and really the country. Everywhere I've traveled and in my work and in play, I run into somebody who he's impacted. And that's special. That's right. You know, 90 years. I told him, I think when I was 18 and I graduated from high school, I told him, okay, I know, you're in your 60s and but you had me late in life, so I expect that you're going to live a lot longer. And he's lived up to that promise, and I expect. He told me on his 90th birthday that he's got another 10 more to go. So that's,
great.
That's great. I think I just wanted to end on, we could talk about all the things that he's done with everybody, but I want to mention something that happened while I was growing up. When I was 3 years old, he would take us, I remember him taking us everywhere to these things, but one of the most important things that he did is he still took us every day, my sister and I, every day to preschool. Oh. That was our time, just he and I together, and he and us together. And it was special, and those car rides, and as busy as he was, he always did that. He always took the time to share his little words of wisdom. He still does that with me today. He still does that with our children. And when folks visit him, he still does that now. I don't think he even realizes all of any thought he says. I just feel like I need to be writing everything down, because it's not just because of the time that he's lived here. It's the man of integrity that he is and that he lives up to be. And whatever side of the aisle you're on, if we all work together and follow that example, I think it only helps all of us. So thank you again for this honor. And I'd like to introduce my sister, Tiffany Lopez, to share a few words.
Welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you, Board of Supervisors and Chair Zaragoza, for honoring this moment of inspiration for my father. He has always instilled in us to serve our community, and we've done that as growing up, and we did it in our careers, both in nonprofit management and just being involved in our community. It's very important, and I would like to encourage everybody out there to follow his footsteps and be involved, be engaged, just be engaged in your community. We really do that, all of us. Even my niece, who's 12 years old, she volunteers and she's gone to Women's Political Council events, and that's really important to our family. He is my best friend, biggest mentor, and I had the pleasure of spending the Father's Day and Sunday afternoon with him, just driving around the Oxnard Harbor. Like Marissa said, just sharing history and wisdom of our community. And I just recently joined the Maritime Museum Board,
Okay.
and he was really excited about that. And I just really wanted to thank you so much for taking the time to honor him. He had a wonderful birthday on Saturday with friends and family, and he's doing great and still really involved. And he wanted to thank you for this honor. So thank you so much.
And I think we have two candidates who are probably going to run for city council in the future.
Thank you.
One thing, I don't have any cards, but is there anyone that'd like to share a couple of words? Oh, we do? Oh, I'm sorry, we got two of them
And thank
here.
you for everyone who came here to honor my dad as well.
Okay, so we have Carmen Ramirez, Mayor Pro Tem for Oxnard, followed by Art Hernandez. He's one of our college commissioners.
Thank you and good morning, members of the board and Chair Zaragoza
Good
and
morning.
everybody in attendance. I wanted to be here this morning to participate in this honor for Dr. Manuel Lopez, who I've known for almost 40 years since I came to Oxnard in 1978. And he is, as his daughters say, a man of integrity. He was a businessman. He was my optometrist when I first came to the county. A civic leader, a family person who never relented in doing everything he could for really no personal gain. And that is, I think, something that sometimes gets lost when you're talking about people. Being on a city council, I can tell you, is not very lucrative. It should not be. And he is a person who's always rejected any personal benefit other than his fine reputation for honesty, integrity, and concern. I'm sorry you couldn't be here to hear this, and maybe we'll go back and check. So thank you for allowing this opportunity to honor a man of great wisdom and integrity who's really served our whole community very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yep. Art Hernandez.
Thank you, Chair Zaragoza and members of the board for taking the time out of your meeting to honor my good friend, Dr. Manuel Lopez. I really can truly say that I wouldn't have had the opportunities to serve. This year completes 25 years that I've served in education, boards of education. In 16 years, last 16 years on the Community College Board of Trustees representing the 5th District. And I really, honestly, it's just none of this would have happened without the influence and without Dr. Lopez. When my wife and I, we were young and we were starting our family, we just moved back to the community from college. And Dr. Lopez, along with Nao Tagasugi at the time, this must have been about 1984, with the council at the time, hired the first Latino city manager Oxnard ever had, and that was David Mora. And he was just a great man. We were proud. We were seeing, it wasn't too often then that you would see Latinos as leaders, especially the city size of Oxnard. And when 2 years, 3 years later, as things happen, council changes and David Mora was dismissed. He was fired. And my wife and I, we were devastated because we really thought that he was a great leader, and we'd had the opportunity to get to know him. So we needed to know what was going on, what happened here, how could this happen? So we were, Marcos Vargas, who all of you know at the time, was working with El Concilio, and he said, well, there's some people that are upset too. We want to talk to Dr. Lopez. We're going to have a meeting. He'll be there, and he'll answer any questions. So we went, and he explained to us about what had happened, and that it was unfortunate that David Moore would left, but he explained that there weren't enough votes. I go, what do you mean not enough votes? Well, what happens, and he started to explain, and he basically gave us a civic lesson, which seems pretty basic, but when you're at that time, and he gave us a civic lesson that he's just continued to give me. I've just had been one long civic lesson from Dr. Lopez. He's just an amazing man. From there, I got involved. He got us involved. This is how you change things. This is an instance. This is how you change things. And he mentored a lot of us. He got us involved. I continued. At the time, I had a business. I had a real estate business. And fortunate to have one of the greatest partners there are, and we had a real estate business. And I was already elected at the time, and I remember twisting the arm of my partner, John Saragosa, to run for city council. And he
Many years
did.
ago.
And he did. And it's just, and that's been a great thing for our community. There's just been a multiplier effect. I could go on and on and on, and there's so many people here and that are here that are part of that effect that Manny started. And then, of course, Irma, the countless functions and events that they've had at their house, their endorsements, bringing in their houses. Their home has been a place where leaders from not only throughout the state, from the country, stop by and have been there to catapult some of their political careers. So I wanted to be here today, and I wouldn't miss honoring Dr. Lopez, my great friend and my mentor, and I love him dearly. I think he's in our godparents in the Latino tradition, there are ninos and there are ninas, and Dr. Lopez, he's my nino, he's my godfather, and he's just in best times and tough times, he's just always been there, and I feel that way, but I know I'm not the only one. Everyone feels that way that Manny's touched. So thank you again for taking the time today.
Thank you, Art. Yeah. So I'm going to go down to Bill. Bill Higgins worked with Dr. Lopez for many, many years, campaign manager, friend, and him and Pat are here today.
Thank you, Supervisor Zaragoza and members of the board. I didn't come here today intending to say anything, but I have been inspired both by the proclamation and by the testimony of his two dynamic daughters. There is something about Manny that I think I should share with you. I had the opportunity to be his campaign manager during every one of his campaigns. On the first election that we made city council, he was the first directly elected mayor of Hispanic descent in the history of the city of Oxnard. And after he was elected, he proved that Hispanic elected officials could represent the entire community because he was constantly re-elected. He won some very close elections. One election was a recall. He dared to suggest a utility tax. It amounted to $40 per parcel per year. And he was put up for recall. Another councilman on the same election was recalled for that purpose. That was Sujo Caro. Dr. Lopez survived that recall. He's one of few in the state of elected officials who had to run on a recall while they were proposing a utility tax. They were all kicked out of office. The other thing that has inspired me is that Manny did this with an extreme disability. Everything you see read on that diploma, including the fact he was on the Planning Commission for the city of Oxnard for many years, he did with a disability. When he was very young, he spent a number of years up at the sanatorium, up at the Bard facility, with serious tuberculosis. This was before penicillin. He survived. While he was in there, he continued his education. His brother was in there with him with the same deferment. His brother did not come out alive. Manny, only because of radical surgery, not because of penicillin or new modern medicine, survived. He lost a lung and part of his rib cage. So when you see him list out what he accomplished, he also held a private practice up into his 80s. And within his private practice of optometry, he had to return to San Francisco and take upgraded tests that were required by that profession. And he did that through the 80s. When many optometrists decided they had enough, he continued. He did all of this with one lung and other disabilities. And he's 90 years old, and he's still going strong. He's on the Harbor Commission for the Port Hueneme Harbor District. I've been inspired. I hope the rest, and one day a book will be written, and he will be remembered for the rest of time. But I appreciate and value the opportunity he gave me. And I thank you for recognizing this wonderful man today. Goodbye.
Thank you, Bill. I'm gonna go down and give you this. I'd like to share also that we have Al Placencia's here too, and Bill Gallagher, and also former clerk Danny Martinez, and we have Greg Ramirez, and we have the Honorable Judge Covarrubias was here earlier. And if I missed anybody, raise your hand that you're here, because I really believe that Dr. Lopez was a person that really needs to be honored. So I'm going down to give you the resolution at this time.
While you walked out, I just want to welcome Bill Gallagher back into the boardroom. It's been a long time, and glad to see you looking so well and healthy, Bill. All right.
So who wants to join us for the photo here?
Anybody who's been touched?
Well, the whole state.
The whole place.
I'm touched, but I don't.
My cousin's here, and George and Mary Rose.
Bill?
Thank you so much.
I had two readings.
Okay. And you actually everything. To look that way when it comes to it.
Tracy?
Maria?
Where's Maria?
She's sitting right there. Okay.
One more with Carmen. We can look this.
Okay, look over, okay.
She's also the photographer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lopez, if you're streaming this. Thank you again.
I also just want to compliment the daughters too, and of course your mother, and just it's in your blood, right? It's public service, and you come from wonderful stock, and congratulations and happy birthday to Manny.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next item is item 7, consent items 11 to 49. Is there any concerns, or Michael, or 74 and 75?
And you have a public speaker in
Supervisor
75.
Long?
Yes, I did have a question. And that's on item 14 of Sue Hughes. If I could just ask a couple questions.
We'll listen to Sue Hughes first, and then we'll go from there. Okay, Sue?
Sorry, I just wanted clarification because we're talking budgets. And then we have a slide that shows that Santa Barbara is cutting budgets and so forth. And I see this item is $160,000 that we're going to be paying a third of the cost.
Yes, so we are proposing to extend the contract with Blue Point. The county, along with San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara County, are in the middle of a proposal to the California Public Utilities Commission to form a regional energy network. It would be funded at about $54 million for over a 10-year period. And it would be a tri-county effort for energy efficiency for residential, essentially mostly residential. But we are splitting the cost of the contracting between Santa Barbara, San Luis, and Ventura counties. And Santa Barbara County already has this in their budget. They've budgeted for this particular item.
Okay, because I worry when we go from a budget of $40,000 to $160,000 along with this study. And if I think by 3, that's a lot of money for a study. So I just wanted to confirm it's up to, are you going to come back and ask us for more, or where are we on this study, I guess was my question.
So this is a proposal to the Public Utilities Commission, and this is a very complicated procedure that the PUC operates under. There's only currently 2 regional energy networks in the state, one in the Bay region and one in Los Angeles. So we're all sort of learning with each other, both the staff at the PUC and the counties. This is sort of our best estimate on what something like this would cost us for contracting with them. So it's a proposal that we have put forward, And Blue Point is the entity that it's helping us with the matrix that we need to explain just how this program would work across all 3 counties when you take into consideration how many residents we have, residential homes we have, how many disadvantaged communities we have, how many hard-to-reach areas there are. So it's a very complicated legal procedure we're going through. This is our best estimate. It may be the fact that we don't even spend $160,000. And once we're approved, and we probably won't likely know now until December, but should that happen, that will open the door for more funding for us to move forward because it's so technical.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Parks?
Well, I just think everything with the PUC becomes incredibly technical and legal. They have their own way of doing things that's different than any other agency in the state of California, essentially. And the idea that we are partnering with these other counties, I think, probably adds some complexity to it, too. But it also will net us some good rewards for our residents in terms of energy savings, and that's the goal.
Okay, thank you. I just get leery when we are doing this fact finding and so forth, but we don't know, and charges can go quickly. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I have a speaker here on item 75, Brian Brennan from Beacon.
Thank you, Chair Zaragoza and members of the board. I'm here in capacity as a pro bono executive director of Beacon. It's a joint powers agency between Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, and the 6 coastal cities in those 2 counties. Beacon's mission is to advocate for sustainable solutions to maintaining sands and sediments coming to the beaches. And I would just want to, if you'll excuse the pun, this is somewhat of a watershed moment to point out the language that's actually in here. And I want to thank your board and, as importantly, the Watershed Protection District and Jeff Pratt for actually looking at the repurposing of the sand and sediments in the creeks. The idea is that normally, under normal circumstances, before a man touches a lot of the sand and sediments, it gets out to the ocean, it finds its way onto beaches, and stays on the beaches or leaves through erosion. But once we touch it, we sort of own it, and the idea of trying to repurpose that sand and get it to the beach has become very, very complicated, not just in our county, but along the whole coast. And I don't know if any of you read the article in the New Yorker magazine about 2-3 weeks ago, but the actual shortage of sand internationally, and sand both for beaches, but as importantly for construction. And I want to just commend the Watershed Protection District for realizing that this sand, by the way, some of the sand actually used to go to Broad Beach before we pulled it out of Cayugas Creek, because we actually would go off the coast through the Magoo Lagoon and find its way south. And so this is really getting some of that sand back. And I know this is very complicated. I know you've got legal issues going on, but in terms of the idea of being able to reuse it, it's amazing. And if you just allow me a minute to read a few things, because this is, I will say, for every county on the coast, this is way ahead of anything anybody else has done. And I think we need to see more of this. And the language in here is pretty. If you mind, it's a 583-page document, and I know most of you.
You're going to read it all, Brian?
Most of your staff read every word of this, but let me just point out a couple things. The material is clean, natural sediment that would naturally feed the downstream beaches. The grain size distribution is similar to Broad Beach. The slightly coarser upper Cayugas would remain on the beach longer than the finer material in other inland sources, providing greater scour protection and project longevity. The County of Ventura must remove the creek material as part of the approved and permitted channel maintenance program, and therefore use of the material as beach nourishment is considered a beneficial reuse. The project and the upper Cayugas location is closer than previously analyzed inland sources. I just want to say, I know on the surface it seems so logical we should just be able to do it, but between the Corps of Engineers and all the other permitting, I realize it takes on a higher cost. But I just want to say, Ventura County can be a model for all the counties along the coast with this item right here. And I want to thank you and staff especially for the hard work they put into this.
And thank you, Brian. Board members, too.
Brian.
Brian's done an excellent job, for Beacon, the JP between Santa Barbara and Ventura County. And we thank you for all the good work that you do, and thank the supervisor for allowing you to do that good work for us, so.
Well, thank you. I just think it's the only way we're going to be able to stay even reasonably close to being able to, as we have more episodal storms and more erosion along the coast, the way we can do it maybe financially is being able to make sure we're able to return the natural sediments through the natural sources is the best way and most logical way to do it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Brian, we hear a lot of this stuff in the newspapers, Lego Broad Beach. That was just a really clear, straightforward explanation about really sand moving it. It was just great. I just really appreciate you coming up and your comments about it. I know from Beacon, but just how you brought all that together. And really, it is a natural process that we're just doing down the coast. And I think it's great because there's been so much stuff about this, but I really do appreciate it. And I know that Watershed's worked and Jeff and everybody to try to make all this work. So I appreciate you calling that out.
They are, and I just want to say there's part of the project that this might be the most logical step now if it goes through this. I mean, bringing sand from Vancouver, Canada down the coast and having it turned back because it's not quite the right color doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
so
right.
this is the best way to do it. Thank you for your comments.
Supervisor Parks.
Yes, and certainly it makes a lot of economic sense too, in the sense of we have to clean out the creeks so that they can be used for water conveyance, and what better thing than to be able to sell that sand from just a strictly economic perspective.
If I could just add one little thing, Santa Barbara County, and I know Glenn Shepard and certainly the Watershed Protection District is looking at it here. Santa Barbara County actually retrofitted some of their debris basins that actually hold the debris so that both the sands and sediments would be able to go through and still be able to trap the big timbers and rocks and things that cause the problem. We hope to be able to institute some of that here in this county the same way. Again, that's just allowing the natural process. So thank you again.
And we're obviously looking at alternatives to having huge, lots of trucks coming from Moore Park taking sand to the beach because of the impact the trucks will have on residents, on our roads, on our air quality and all of that. Whether it's through a barge, which is another option that will avoid that, or being able to have a closer source. Both those are obviously better options for the Broad Beach situation. But the absurdity of the idea that it's the color of the sand now that is more important to the Coastal Commission than the tons of diesel emissions and pollutants that we'll get in our air as a result of trucking it from Moore Park just seems pretty absurd. I guess that will end my comments.
I would only say that any sand spends about 2 weeks on the beach. It actually bleaches out. If they had taken that sand and tested it and put it out in the sun for 2 weeks in the parking lot, they would probably find it would be usable. But I would say this, that depending what your legal counsel and what you come up as a board, Beacon is willing to advocate in front of the Coastal Commission for this natural. And actually I did when I was on the commission, and then when I was off the commission, spoke again in favor of trying to utilize this sand out of Caygas Creek because it was a natural source for the beach normally. So happy to go back and do that depending on your board's direction.
Yeah, it would probably end up there normally, if we didn't have so
If we never touched it, it would end up there normally. That's right.
Supervisor Bennett.
I appreciate your comments about the overall. Mr. Brennan's done a great job as the executive director of Beacon, focused on all of these issues in terms of beach erosion, et cetera. But the big concept that Beacon is trying to embrace, it's just hard to get your hand around, is the whole concept of we should accept the responsibility that we need to get that sand down to the beach, and this is one way to do it. But there are other things that Beacon is looking at in terms of trying to get all the government entities, so Santa Barbara County, Ventura County, the coastal cities of Santa Barbara and Ventura and Oxnard and Port Hueneme to try to do this. But it's been a remarkable pro bono leadership of the executive director of Beacon in terms of holding it together by Mr. Brennan. And I know that's been a passion of his, is to try to get this on the radar screen. So today is a good day for us to have that conversation. Thank you very much.
One of the things we also mentioned to board members is one of the things that Beacon wants to do is bring a presentation to the Board of Supervisors and the City Councils to explain the process of Beacon and what we do. And one of the things that I've learned is I realize that sand travels from point A to point B, and it's really fascinating, and how we lose sand right here in the Magoo Canyon and so forth. And so that's something that we are looking forward to.
I'd be happy to bring that back to your board after you figure out what's going on with Broad Beach. There's one thing, then, thank you for just reminding me. The city and the county will be dealing with cobble. The city of Ventura paid almost $900,000 for cobble that should have been brought to the beach naturally and normally, but had to actually buy it from a contractor who cleaned out the debris basin. That cobble and sand belongs to the commons. It belongs to us all. And for a private contract, so we all need to look at that issue and how we make it affordable to be able to get some of the sediments to the coast. I think the best way is through the natural process. Thank you for your comments.
And also, just a different issue regarding the agenda item is just kind of a surprise to see, even after over 50 years, they're still finding DDT in the sand in that area, and so that's one of the concerns. So they're saying it may not be enough that it will, make any kind of health hazard, but just that idea that how incredibly persistent that is in the environment that we're still finding it.
We hope and pray that it is actually under the level, I believe, that it would be significant, but certainly is there also. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? Got items 11 to 49, and 74 and 75. Okay, first and second, please vote. Okay, that's approved. Thank you. Our next item is public comments, and we have Arthur Munoz is our.
Hello, my name is Arthur Munoz. There's a couple issues that I'd like to address, and they kind of jump to different things. However, I had just done a 80 days in the Ventura County Jail. I'm disabled within the meaning of the American with Disabilities Act. When I was there, I was made to spend like 95% of my time on my bunk because I was in severe pain, and there was nothing provided for me while in the jail. I think that there's a big problem going on with the emphasis on making people wanting people to suffer, opposed to their medical issues and the unilateral type of adversity that's being implemented at the county jail over there, and how medical treatment is being denied for people who really need it. I've tried to exhaust my local remedies within the meaning of the within the meaning of the Prison Litigation Reform Act, because I believe that I'm going to need to go forward and address this issue in a court of law, because it's beyond the pale, so to speak. Nobody should have to spend 95% of their time while in jail on their bunk because they're in severe pain. And my repeated requests for help were just falling on deaf ears, and they're just whatever, and no one really addressed the issue. I'm going to change it up just a little bit. I wanted to touch on that. However, this morning when the Pledge of Allegiance was being said, and at the end there where it says "and justice for all," my father was killed in Vietnam in 1966. He was he was an Army Ranger, a staff sergeant, and to a platoon of Army Rangers. Well, all his men happened to be black men because of the inherent racial prejudice that was going on back in the U.S. military in 1966. As a result, in 1990, I was egregiously persecuted in Ventura County before a Jim Crow racist Superior Court judge, where, as a 25-year-old man, the only fault that I had shared in case number CR 25901 was not being sophisticated in the law and not having anyone there to help me, of course, because my father was killed in Vietnam. the evidence and the proof that I have to show right now I'm sure will, have a constitutional attorney ready to jump on the case, because it's so flagrant and so blatant that there is no justice for all when my father's in the grave, and his memory and his sacrifice for this country via his life for the Constitution and the freedoms and the rights imposed thereby were just categorically and unequivocally denied his son in said trial in 1990. Now I'm going to move on real quick because I need to address this issue. I was arrested on May the 20th of this year, and in that arrest process, I have my little dog with me by the name of Nellie. Nellie is my dog that I've had for about 8 years or now, and the officers that arrested me called this lady, I believe her name was Liz, and she had taken my dog, and I haven't been able to make the connection back with my dog and Liz, so I'm hoping that Liz is not trying to steal my dog, and I wanted to put it out there that I'm now looking for my dog. I'm trying to retrieve my dog. This is the first step of many which I'll take to try to get my dog back. My dog surely misses me, and neither my dog, myself, nor my father deserved any of the undertakings that I just spoke about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arthur, and my condolences on your dad, too, Thank you for sharing. Okay, our next item.
If I may, Chair. Mr. Munoz, our ADA coordinator, Matt Carroll, Assistant CEO, will be coming down in just a moment and get your contact information. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, our next item is board members' comments. Or the parks?
Let's see. We had a couple of events in my district and one coming up. I know Assemblymember Irwin is putting together a safety forum with emergency preparedness booths, and I'm sure the county public safety folks will be participating, covering topics from earthquakes and floods to fire safety and other potential disasters. And I know the community is invited. It's June 24th at 10 a.m. at the Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Plaza. Be prepared, safety fair. Also, I attended the Veterans of Foreign War Eric Huberth Memorial Flag Day event, and it was they do that every year, and it's just wonderful to be there. But this year we also had several first graders from Santa Rosa Tech Magnet School there singing, and that was just great to enjoy them, but for them also to see the respect that we give to our flag. I also attended a memorial for Lee Riggin, who we closed in honor of, just an amazing volunteer. And I know her from different things that she's volunteered in my district with my assistance, and then seeing all these other organizations coming forward to talk about her. You just realize I just knew one small section of the many things that she did, from everything from even the Conejo Valley Black Women's Leadership Council there, part of that, everything from certainly helping all the causes that from the environment. We see pictures of her cleaning the Ventura River one day, and pictures of working pole booths, and just an amazing lady. So it was really nice to learn more about her. And on that, I'm going to ask that we close in honor of the three people on this list. One of them is Michael Verrett. He was the son of Barbara Kirchhoff, and it's just so sad to see that a young man with a family and having passed away. So I know we give our hearts out to Ms. Kirchhoff and her family. And also the loss of Carol Louise Nestor. I believe she was the mother of Kevin Nestor, our former assistant fire chief. And also William McKinley Medley. And I'd just like to read, he was with the Air Force, and then he became very active in his retirement with the Rotary, but also becoming an ombudsman, a senior ombudsman, which is such a great thing to be able to volunteer to do, to go to rest homes and convalescent hospitals and be there for people who don't have families to visit them, and helping them and bringing some happiness to their lives. So I know he also will be very much missed. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Supervisor Bennett?
Thank you very much. I've got a couple of pictures of an event that I'd like to share with the board. There they are. And this is the Milestones event that was at Cal State Channel Islands. This is an all-volunteer event. Volunteers put this on and this time it was 57 of our foster children that have exited the system. And this is to try to honor their milestone accomplishments in this past year. And we're trying to build this group is trying to build this thing as a sort of a family reunion of foster children and stuff. And it was just a great deal of fun to have this. And we did lawn games for a couple of hours. Then we went inside, had dinner, and celebrated them. And for the first time, we did this cornhole competition. And we had people from the various service clubs around Ventura County, sponsored teams. Sometimes they had their own show up. Over on the right here is, with their hat on, is Betsy Chess, who represents the Ventura Rotary, and they ended up winning the competition. Betsy Chess and another woman took on two young guys. You see the one guy pitching there in the dark shirt. Everybody thought they were going to be the guys who were going to win. They were experienced college pros at playing cornhole and stuff. But Betsy and this other woman were remarkable cornhole players and stuff. You see Marilyn Berge and her husband participated in this. And the next slide, please. Then we had some really, okay, I can do it myself. There we go. And then we had Sheriff Dean and Under Sheriff Bill Ayub, and then Curtis Updike was here with Barry Zimmerman there. They brought the canine unit, and then you see you had a number of dignitaries there. Assemblymember Irwin and Jeff Dean were in the receiving line, along with Curtis and Barry Zimmerman. And each one of these children, as they walked across, their milestones for this past year were flashed up on the screen. And then Jaya John came and spoke the nations. He was here in the room a little recently, and I introduced him. It was really a great motivational event, and just want to compliment all the volunteers that have pulled this thing together and have taken this from a little graduation ceremony to a real family reunion get-together. And you see the person who's probably the most active of everybody is Linda Bowman there, flanked by the two sheriffs. Just this idea that these children constantly need our help is really emphasized, that there are a lot of adults that still want to stay in their lives as they exit the system. So it was a very pleasant evening Saturday night, and I'd like to ask the board to adjourn in memory of the people on this list. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Long?
Thank you. This last week, we attended the SCAG Earthquake Preparedness Workshop. My Chief of Staff, Paul Grossgold, attended as our county rep and was able to take in the regional view. We focused on resilience of the region in the aftermath of the major earthquake and whether we have planned enough for recovery. So that's something we're looking at, is what happens when everything gets shut down. We have the earthquake, and it's something that we should be all aware of. So I urge you to go and read more about your earthquake preparedness, have your kits available, and so forth. We also met with Captain Yankee for on the base preparedness opportunities. And so we're still looking out with the Navy base as to what opportunities we can have with the county. And so we've got a long list, and we're going to be working on a JPA soon. And so I look forward to the ventures there. And then last night, Santa Paula Council, I just want to thank them for all their hard work. They've been through nights and nights of deliberations and fact-finding and so forth. And last night they approved 4-1 the tax sharing resolution for the fire department. So I look forward to working with them. That came out hot off the press last night. And then also, I'd like to adjourn the memory of those on this list, especially Danny Torres, who's in Peru. He was the Piru Lake dam operator for over 29 years, born family of musicians, and he formed the Danny Torres and the Piru Band. And as you know, Piru is so small, everyone knew him. His wife, Irma, now serves on the Piru Cemetery District, and I want to thank them so much for what they do for our community. And then also Elizabeth Betty Harrison, her and her late husband were a part of the early efforts to build the Santa Paula Memorial Hospital, and have done so much for the community as well, volunteering countless hours. And just wanted to take a moment to say thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it.
So, Mr. Foy?
Hey, real quick, just adjourn the people on this list. And I do want to talk about cemeteries. Cindy Pandolfi is going to step down from our cemetery district. And, you know, we've had some problems. And, you know, prior supervisor had a lot of problems in the cemetery district. But she really worked hard over the last 4 years and really did some great things to change it. It's going really well. Things are there. She's going to grandmother, so she's going to be moving on. And I just want to say I'm grateful for the service. But, you know, she came also from the public defender's office and done a lot of other things. But going back to these people who just keep giving, you know, Manny and all the things you talk about. And you see Brian here, you know, pro bono doing all that extra work. I mean, there's so many people out there just continue to give and give and give and make this county great. And it's just one of those kind of people that do that. So just wanted to call her out. Thanks.
Thank you. I'd also like to share that I attended the BayPAC 27th Annual Juneteenth event in Oxnard Plaza Park. There was hundreds of people that attended that. Additionally, I attended, as we mentioned today, Manny Lopez's 90th birthday at his home. It was great. Had a lot of music, food, and it was just a great event. You know, and as it was shared today, it was just great to see Manny. And too bad that he was ill this morning, but he was doing great Saturday. You know, walking around. Maybe the party was too much for him, but it was great. Also, the Nyland Center, we had a mural that was painted, and the Oxnard Rotary Club donated $3,000 for that, which is really great. So I want to thank the Boys and Girls Club also for attending, and of course, First Five was there also. Also, I had the pleasure of attending the All-Star baseball game in Thousand Oaks. My grandson was played, and also your grandson?
His son.
Anyway.
He's not old enough to have a
Your son. But anyway, the East and West and the West won. What was it, 5-2, right? 5-2, great game. It was nice and hot in Thousand Oaks, about 90 degrees. It was kind of nice to come down the grade again to good old Oxnard, Ventura. And it was about 60-some degrees here, and it was just a great Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all. And I'd like to adjourn in memory of those folks on this list. Thank you. Michael?
Thank you, Chair Zaragoza. A couple quick items. Just thanks again for everybody for their hard work on the budget. Coming June 29th on Thursday, there'll be our second job fair that I think we've had here at the county. We'll be right out here from 10 to 2, and we had one a couple years ago, and we had great attendance that time. I want to say over 300 or 400 people, and great representation by department heads and elected officials and leadership here at the county. So I look forward to a big day there of letting the public know what great career opportunities we have here at the county.
What year is that again?
It is June 29th from 10 to 2.
Here at the...
Sheriff Foundation Wine and Dine with Canine Dogs is Sunday, July 2nd at Underwood Farms. And then lastly, I'll be doing a State of the County here this Thursday in the boardroom at 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
I have two versions.
So, Brian, what, 66? Regular agenda item, and this is approval of authorization for probation agent director to sign a contract for juvenile evening reporting center. One step at a time. Is
Good morning,
Mark.
Chair Zaragoza, members of the board, CEO Powers, Mark Vorelli, your probation agency director and chief probation officer. Here on behalf of the probation agency and also as the co-chair of the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council here in Ventura County, asking that you approve and authorize the probation agency director and designee to enter into a one-year contract with One Step a la Vez, which is a community-based organization based in Fillmore to provide evening reporting center services for youth on probation in the Santa Clara River Valley, or as we refer to it, the 126 corridor, and also to authorize the chief probation officer to sign amendments to this contract, extending it for 3 one-year periods, and to make any substantive amendments to the contract with approval from County Council. Just a little bit of history about the Evening Reporting Center. We first launched it in 2013 at the Oxnard Boys and Girls Club at the 7th Street address, and it was an effort as part of our longstanding effort to look at juvenile alternatives to detention, and we concentrated it in Oxnard after analyzing the data that showed a lot of Latino youth coming from South Oxnard area. So the Evening Reporting Center design is to focus on moderate to low-level juvenile probationers to provide an alternative to returning back to court and possibly detention for violations of probation. The idea is to assign the kids to go for any increments of 20 to 45 days with the hopes that eventually they would continue on going to the community-based organization after the probation period is over. Now, we've had a few years now to look at our outcomes with our Oxnard program, and we felt importantly, as the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council felt that it was important that we expand this model because of the success that we've seen in terms of the outcomes. So we selected 2 areas of the county, the 126 corridor and the east end of the county. We now have a provider here on that 126 corridor that will provide transportation for all probation youth to this one location. It's sort of set up as a one-stop center where they'll be receiving case management, some good targeted resources, as well as programs, and to be surrounded with caring adults that occupy that important period of time between 1 and 8 p.m. when kids are off and out in the community unsupervised.
And that's really worked great, that evening reporting center.
That's worked fantastic in Oxnard. We've had about a 70% graduation rate for the kids that have participated in that particular program. And what's even more important is about 80% of those graduates continue on attending the Boys and Girls Club after they've been directed for that period of time that they're on probation. And so that's more important because we're talking about natural supports that exist in the community that are not funded by county and not overseen by probation. So that's
and they have a place to go, too.
And they have the place to go.
That's important.
And it's amazing for a lot of the kids, and we're finding out that they haven't even accessed the resources in their own backyard. And sometimes this is the first exposure that they have at community-based organizations that are doing great work in the community.
I have a question. How many people do you think this will be serving?
We're looking at about 20 referrals a year with about 7 at one given time. That's the way the contract is written. Mm-hmm. However, depending on how successful we are, that could be expanded. But it's a smaller club than the Oxnard location, but we're hoping that we'll be able to get some good outcomes and we might be able to expand. So part of the contract calls again for transportation as well. And one thing that we added to this particular model is allowing law enforcement to do drop-offs. So our patrol officers are deputies that are patrolling Fillmore and Piru, Santa Paula Police Department that's patrolling Santa Paula, come in contact with kids unsupervised in the community. And this would allow them, rather than to cite and have the kids go through the juvenile justice system, to allow them to drop off at this location where they get structured programming and supervision in lieu of a citation into the Juvenile Justice Center, which we think is a fantastic addition.
And so the transportation is between Santa Paula and Fillmore and Piru?
Yes.
That whole
Yes, it would be the whole entire 126 corridor where we'd set up the transportation, the pickup spots.
Okay, thank you, Mark. It was a pleasure of the board.
I'd just like to say also that it's wonderful to have these good ways of assisting the youth without having to incarcerate, and we're also being very successful in the fact that there are less people, less youth in the juvenile justice complex that we built. Do you have, can you give me an estimate of the percentage occupancy it is in that facility?
I was advised yesterday that our population is right now 92.
And it
We have
has
92 youth, and that's pre-adjudicated and post-adjudicated youth in the facility. So kids that are pending the juvenile court process and kids that are serving court-ordered commitments. And our capacities, well, at full build-out is 420.
Right, right. Well, I just think about we have these 300 extra spots for trying to really make it a mission of ours to see that we are able to use them for something else other than if they're not needed for incarceration of youth.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a really good facility, and it would, I'm sure, be helpful in some other use. So it's something I know that we're all thinking about, but it's something that we'd like to move forward on. You have to be creative here, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and one thing, if I could just ask, I'm concerned on the transportation side, the cost associated. We have those issues with our transportation right now, just on the bus system, and how our students, we have over 30% our students, youth, using it. So if you could, when we come back, I'd like to know if that program is working as well.
Like the one in Oxford?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a concern for us. We need to get the kids to this particular location, and so that's something that we're going to be taking a really close look at.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we got a first and a second. Please vote. And that's approved, and we have another probation, it's approval and authorization for probation agent director to sign a contract for technical assistance services for activities related to juvenile detention alternatives initiative and racial and ethnic disparities with Haywood Burns Institute.
Yeah, no. This is related to, and that's why we had them kind of on the same agenda. We've done a lot of work, as you know. We became a juvenile detention alternatives initiative site in 2002. Not that we needed to bring our population down because we were moving into this big facility. It was because we felt that the outcomes were better for kids if we can divert moderate to low-level kids out of secure confinement. So we started our efforts. We've done a tremendous amount of work locally. And then we started to concentrate our efforts in 2009 when we were awarded a technical assistance grant through the state. And we began to work with an expert consultant, W. Haywood Burns Institute. We call them BI, Burns Institute. So from the period of 2009 to 2013, we worked very closely with them as part of this grant and really started to analyze our data. And that's one of the first things we did was we built this tremendous infrastructure to take a look at who's coming through the doors of our juvenile hall, where are they coming from, what reasons they're coming, what's our target population. And as a result, we were able to launch a lot of targeted interventions in the community to bring back down not only our admissions total, but particularly focused on the disproportionality of youth of color in our juvenile justice system, particularly Latino youth here in Ventura County. So up here proud to say that during that period of time, we were able to bring down our admissions of Latino youth by 56% during that period of time. So that grant ended in 2013. We've had limited technical assistance from Burns Institute and the Annie E. Casey Foundation because we remained a JDAI site. This effort here would increase that technical assistance, bring them back to look at what I refer to as the new frontier for juvenile justice, and that is going and focusing and pushing on the prevention, early intervention side. So with the help of the Burns Institute, we're going to be looking at not only at our admissions into secure detention, but we're going to be pushing it forward to take a look at expulsions rates in the school district, SARB referrals, and even look at citations for moderate to low-level juvenile offenders by law enforcement and see if there's anything that we could do in terms of create some diversion programs even earlier in the system to prevent kids from going deeper in. So this is what this contract is about. We have a lot of energy here in Ventura County because of the success we've had bringing down our juvenile population, and we feel that the earlier that we could get involved in an adolescent's life, the better chance their life outcomes will be later on.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions of Mark? What pleasure of the board? Get a first and a second. Please vote. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, and again, appreciate all the support your board gives.
Excellent work.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Our next item is the CEO's office, approval of the year-end budget adjustment and carryover loans for fiscal year 16-17. Catherine?
Good morning, Chair Zaragoza,
Good morning.
CEO Powers, members of the board, Catherine Rodriguez at the CEO's office. The item before you is the year-end adjustments. We're now at 97% complete for the year, and we're going to make some adjustments in our budget. The items that are recommended is in the board letter. Highlight is that we're going to be using $1.5 million from the general fund contingency. That would lead us to a remaining of $353,000 available still. Items such as the auditor controller's office, we are going to make an adjustment of $896,000. Go ahead. Sure.
They're talking money here.
$896,000 from the auditor's office to help in the projects that were installed for this fiscal year, the property tax allocation, assessment collection system of $376,000. Also, when we had the constructed receipt, we had $520,000. So there's a lot of going on at the auditor's office in terms of the technology use. Another item to highlight is on the RMA. We have budgeted $4.4 million in the program mitigation, and we're using $388,000 against that.
That's for the general plan.
That's correct,
Right.
for the general plan update. And then on the Human Services Agency side, we have a $535,000 adjustments to be adjusted out from the general fund contingency to increase their budget for the 16-17 due to the delay in the state processing of those MOE costs. So that's $535,000. And lastly, we have some loans that are going to be carried over for the next year, such as the VCMC of $51 million because of the short delays from the reimbursements that's coming in from the federal and the state government. And a couple of loans as well on the Waterworks 16. And that's $1.2 million and $500,000. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
We apologize for laughing up there. It was that the budget is always fluid, and there's always more money to be asked and not asked. So
It's a roadmap.
it was our own personal joke back here. It was like, okay, didn't we just have the budgets, and isn't the last year's budget approved? So
I think I've
thank
greeted you good afternoon yesterday, good evening, and now it's good morning.
That's right.
And it's been pointed out that it is a living document, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
So this
It is always living, growing.
Yes, thriving.
It's okay if a few of us don't vote.
We need your vote.
She's like, no.
Okay, so we need a motion.
Thank you.
Okay, we get a motion, we get a second, please vote.
And thank you again for all of your team's hard work
Thank
and
you,
all the
Catherine.
departments to get this stuff together.
Thank you.
You look so refreshed, what's the matter with you? Our next item is a GSA item, authorization for person agent to enter 167 annual service agreements in excess of $100,000.
Good morning, Chair Zaragoza.
Good morning.
Supervisors, Mr. Powers. My name is Boyd Donovan. I'm the Assistant Purchasing Agent in GSA Procurement Services, and I'm here to represent our board letter for requesting authorization for the purchasing agent to enter into 167 annual service agreements that are expected to exceed $100,000 in fiscal year 17-18. Pursuant to Government Code Section 25502.5, the purchasing agent must have your honorable board's approval for all service agreements that are expected to exceed $100,000 for the fiscal year. Approval today does not generate any expenditure. That occurs as the orders are placed against those orders. So I am here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions about? No? Okay, we need a motion. Second, please vote. Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much.
You say another example of the county's contracting for services and the importance of it.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And we have correspondence 73. Oh, 76, yes, regular CEO. That's for the RCD. Okay.
Good morning, board members. The item is pretty straightforward. I just have one point I would like to add to this, and that is looking at the advanced calendar. The agenda in July is pretty jammed, and so I'd like to, instead of asking us to come back on July 18th, have it come back on for the August 1st board hearing, and make it time certain at 11 o'clock so that people on either side of the issue can come and speak. As the board letter points out, the RCD has struggled. It is struggling quite a bit financially. This item that has just been passed out by the clerk is something that was sent by 3 RCD members back in November 2015 to the Board of Supervisors. So this is a public document that was sent to all the Board of Supervisors in 2015, outlining their concerns in terms of what's going on with the budget, and things are worse since then in terms of the budget. I think that the RCD right now does not have a executive director, but in looking, and as you see in the letter, there are quite a few things about this RCD that are different than most of the other RCDs operating in the state in terms of how they operate. So I think it's appropriate, if we're using general funds when almost no other RCD is receiving general funds from their county, that we do our due diligence and make sure that we're allocating funds and that the organization. My intention here is not to try to deny funding to the RCD. It is simply to do our due diligence to make sure the RCD is using the resources that they have a sustainable way to use their resources, and that they're using them appropriately. So,
I would like to have a request. I will not be here on the August 1st meeting, and I would like to be in attendance for this. So can we postpone that to the following?
I think September.
It would be September 12th.
Yeah, the September 12th is fine.
September 12th, is that okay?
And maybe
as I look at this, I know that the item from the 3 district members was a dissent, that they did a dissenting minority opinion on a vote to go to elections. And it turns out that they had promised that they would be able to fund elections, and so they went to elections, and then they don't have the money to pay for it. And that's just one example, because they are hurting financially. My concern is, though, that I agree we should have certainly the knowledge that they're not a sinking ship. When we give them funds, we now require them to tell us how they are being used and report back to us that that is how they are used. But the idea that they don't report to us, they are a separate district, and to have them, come to the board and tell us about your finances, I feel like it would be as effective, if not better, to have the CEO do his due diligence and look through and make sure that we aren't going to give funds to a sinking ship. And secondly, that the funds are going to be used and have been used for the way that they should be used. But I just have a little concern in the fact that they are a separate district and that we do not have oversight over that district. We do contribute $38,000, and we have to make sure that that is used correctly, and we want to make sure that they're not going bankrupt. But I don't know if that necessitates a public hearing, and both sides, as it was reported, would be speaking and all that. I would just want to make sure that they're fiscally sound, A, and B, that their funds that we do give them are being used effectively. But I do have some concerns about kind of the drama of the courtroom and or whatever, having it all out here.
I do agree with that. My understanding also is LAFCO. Shouldn't LAFCO be the one that they're reporting to for this, because it is a special district and not the Board of Supervisors?
They're really, as my understanding, and our county council can let us know, but they are an independent special district, so they report to themselves, essentially. They don't, LAFCO gets involved if they want to, redistrict or any of those kind of things.
Annexation.
But they are their own entity, their own board of directors. They hire their own executive or general manager to run it. And they are definitely hurting financially, and they definitely need a fiscal plan. I'm just saying, how do we get to that point? And I'd be just as satisfied and even more so if the county executive officer could report back to us what he has found by doing some due diligence as to their fiscal stability and whether we should be contributing to it.
Supervisor Bennett?
I'd like to point out that the recommended action is specifically that: direct the CEO to evaluate the financial position of the RCD and agendize a time certain item on the Board of Supervisors, now September 12th agenda, to review the budget, financial conditions, and financial plans of the Ventura County Resource Conservation District. This is not asking this is not directing them to come. This is directing our CEO to do this. We've done this a few other times when we had concerns about organizations that we were giving funds to. At that time, you certainly want to have that be public, and somebody wants to dispute the evaluation of the CEO, they can do that. Anybody that can make, but I think it is the appropriate due diligence thing. We do need to hear that report back from the CEO to do that. So it's not directing RCD to do that. It is directing the CEO to do that and to come back and give that report and to the Board of Supervisors. So I do think it is, and again, we have some precedent in terms of doing this also in other situations where we've given financial funds.
Supervisor Long?
So we're confirming that it is not a hearing.
It does.
Well, it is.
If you read the letter itself, it's to request that the RCD attend a Board of Supervisors meeting. And I remember at one point I was directed to come speak before the city council. You don't have subpoena power. It's just that whole idea that now the RCD has to appear before us. That really rubs against me, and that we have to conduct this whole thing when what I think is most important is just looking at the finances. I agree we withhold their contribution until we are assured through our CEO's office, but just I don't want it to become a controversy, unnecessarily a controversy.
I guess we can probably share that information on September 12th.
Certainly, the recommended action doesn't call for that. In the board letter, we can certainly make it noted that we're not asking the RCD to come forward. But I do think that whatever review the CEO has done is something that ought to come back to the Board of Supervisors and should be something that we receive, that we receive in public in that situation. Anybody that wants to come can. But certainly, if we adopt the recommended action, we're not. And remove the note that the reference in the board letter about the RCD coming, that's if they're interested in being here, but the recommended action is not directing the RCD to come here.
Yeah, it does say, to come and present their annual budget and a statement of their position and their plan and all that. It's asking the RCD to do that, but I understand now that you're saying you're not recommending that, though it says it in the last paragraph. But I don't know if you've made a motion, but I was just saying, how about I recommend the CEO be directed to analyze the RCD's financial status and ensure that we're not going to disperse funds to them until we are sure that, one, that they are financially stable, they have a plan for fiscal stability, and secondly, that we know that the funds are being used for what is being specified in those funds. And that's what I would go.
Well, I think that review then, I think that review then should come back to this board in public session. That's just appropriate that review come back to the board in public session. There are a number of things. This is a district that's having significant challenges, and it is appropriate for us to have that conversation.
So we hear it on September the 12th.
I would say, though, if they aren't meeting those requirements, then it comes back to our board. But we're asking them, deliver on the fact that you are fiscally stable before you're going to get this funding. and show us that you have that ability.
When other agencies get themselves in a situation where we have to do due diligence because of their financial situation, I think that's it's a public action. So I'm fine making the motion and seeing what it is. But I would like to direct the CEO to evaluate the financial position of the RCD and agendize a time certain item for the September 12th agenda to review the budget and financial plan of the Resource Conservation District so that the board can be informed. Okay. And to also not to direct the CEO not to disperse the RCD funds until we've done that due diligence, the CEO and the Board of Supervisors. So.
Supervisor Foy?
Real quick, I struggle with the idea of I don't want to put somebody in bankruptcy because of that. Doing after you and I had spoken, we didn't make a call. I guess part of this comes down because the Clay Lacey, whatever, Wood-Clay organization has stopped contributions to a whole bunch, and that was like $150,000 of their deal. And on the other side, this is one of the only ones, or the only one in the state that doesn't have a tax increment that comes to it. It wasn't set up as that type of system. And so the big part for all of us, they're doing some environmental stuff that is important, with all the stuff they have going on, because besides the money they use to run just to pay their overhead, they have these, like recently they just picked up a $600,000 contribution that is going to do for over a 3-year period of, stuff with the animals and into the creeks and all this stuff. Well, if that doesn't happen, they're not doing it, who's going to do it? Then you're going to try to get a rancher or a farmer to do it, so all that may stop. So my only concern with this is if we could do this quickly. I don't know, Mike, and maybe this may be a tough one to even ask. I don't even know when we disperse money, if it's dispersed on the 1st of January, or it's not even during that time, or who knows?
No, so Supervisor, actually what we've been doing, I believe, for about the past 3 years is validating how the funds are being used. Is it for matching grants? What are the outcomes? How have the funds been used?
So you're doing this anyway, right?
We are, yes.
Okay. So we're not asking what's being asked, but the supervisor is not anything much different than you're already doing, in a sense? Besides coming back to us on this?
Well, I think what's different is it's financial, the financial viability analysis.
Right.
That's a significantly different component, so.
Okay. I guess I just don't want to get into a situation where all of a sudden you take some farmer or rancher and all of a sudden now they've got to go spend tens of thousands to do work that was already through grants and everything else that was being done work by these groups, because this is really all that is left in the group, I think, is just pretty much these environmental things that they do to stop stuff into creeks and that kind of stuff. So I would be careful about what we do here on that. And I agree with you on the financial side, and talking to some of them after you talked, they agree. They need to be on some of this stuff and trying to figure out some of these ideas. Supposedly what I just heard is they just got a $60,000 donation recently in the last few days that they can use any way they want. But anyway, that's my only concern with it. At the end of the day, that's really what we're going to do. We could stop the whole thing. So I'm just curious, but we may not be distributing money before September anyway. I don't know what that is.
Well, that's interesting if they just got that donation, because the reason this was brought up also was the $45,000 for elections that they are withdrew. So perhaps finding out from the CEO first would be the better step, since they understand that we're inquiring, and there might be more information that the CEO office can have and bring it back to us.
Yeah, I was going to say, there is some more information, because I did talk to Mark Lund, and I see Mr. Becker here, yesterday, and they're willing to do some type of a workout with them to try to work through this so we can move forward over a period of time and everything else. So they're willing to help out to make sure it moves forward. So if there's some things, I still doesn't think, as it goes back to your original question, doesn't change that. I just don't want to stop the opportunity, what they are doing, because talking to them, there were some significant things that they're involved with this runoff into creeks and all this other stuff that you don't want to stop. And through some of these grants that they're doing that. So
we have a first and a second, but go ahead and Supervisor.
I would ask to amend it, but go ahead, Supervisor.
We have a few points to try to make out. Number one, certainly, I have no intention of trying to stop it. I'm trying to make sure that that our inquiry keeps them it keeps them making good decisions in terms of going forward. The issue there's only one resource conservation district, according to their members that sent the letter, that ends up having elections, for example. Is that expense a good expense for them to engage in?
I think they're going to come back and tell you they agree with you. They're not going to do that because it's not valid anymore.
And that would be healthy and, a healthy conversation for us to have.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine why we have the measure of, in many ways, the measure of an executive director is how they leave an organization. And we have an organization where the executive director is left with a promise that somebody was going to pay for the election results, the election, and it didn't happen. A promise that there was money out there for their line of credit, and it didn't happen. So I can't imagine in this day and age where the newspaper and everybody else is trying to say we want public oversight of the expenditure of public monies, that we would, for some reason, not want to have it be a public report back from the CEO. That's all I'm asking for, is have the CEO do an analysis, come back and publicly give us that report. Why would we want to not have that done in public? That's the question that I would ask. I can't think of a good reason to not have a public report back. I'm not asking them to do a lot of work. I'm not trying to hold them up. If they, for some reason, say this is we can't wait until September, then I would ask the CEO to agendize this earlier. But we're only doing it for September to happen to fit our schedules. But if he needs to agendize this earlier because of that, fine. But we should have this review. I think we're all saying that we should have this review. I can't think of a good reason why in this day and age you wouldn't want to.
And I have a problem, Linda. I talked to Bud Sloan about it, and he said he has no problem coming before the board. So, Steve, I think that's basically where you were saying that he had no problem with that. I just want to make sure that we don't get on the edge and stop some of the work that's being done, because all these grants have to go somewhere to do this work, and I agree.
I would add that to the motion, which would be, and if in conversations with them we find out that they need to have this due diligence thing done sooner, because they need the payment sooner, then direct the CEO to come back to us sooner than
September. I'd just like to correct something you stated. I think maybe one RCD in the state actually has a tax. And that one is specific to, it also runs, I think, maybe like a water district or something like that. So the state RCD currently is looking at trying to resolve these kind of issues statewide by providing funding. That might be where the 60,000 is coming to all the different RCDs so that they have that revenue source.
Our RCD is not much different than the rest. They're all struggling through some of this stuff without donations.
Correct. And currently they're without an executive director, as we know. I guess they have an interim who was their financial person. But just the concept that who is it that's coming before us is their interim, and why are they coming before us? Because we give them $38,000 for a specific purpose, of which they are willing to use that $38,000 for. So that just, then I'm thinking, well, obviously they have huge issues, and they definitely have to get a hold of them, and they have some assets and things that they could sell and ways to get themselves back into the black.
Yes, you're right.
So I just, the idea that, we have to hold them accountable and have this hearing, that's the thing that I object to. I think of it as a controversial thing. Supervisor Bennett mentioned both sides can come and present. I think it's obvious that they have financial issues and they have to get a hold of them. The idea of going to an elections again when they can't pay the last election, so that's obviously something they need to change. But I just don't think they're accountable to us. And by just having our CEO make sure that the funds are going where they're supposed to go, that we give them. And secondly, do some review of their fiscal situation and see that they're not going into bankruptcy, because that would be a big concern.
Well, I mean, just real quick, on one sense, though, we had the Boys and Girls Club here last night because we gave them money, so they made a report, kind of a thing. So I don't think it's uncommon to say, I agree with where you're going, though, that people should be responsible. If public money is going to you, we're asking you to do a certain thing because you are doing things that's good for the public, that hopefully it's done right.
And the things that
I don't think, I know what you don't want to make it a controversy. I agree. I don't want to make it a controversy just because somebody's in trouble a little bit and they get there. Because everybody goes through problems and they get it fixed and they move on. hopefully, and I appreciate, I'm sure they don't want to be, quote, shamed in public over some problems that they have.
Exactly, that's my concern.
I
And when they're
understand.
saying that they should come and bring their budget and be accountable, and I'm just thinking, that isn't what our job is.
Right.
But we'll
No,
listen to
I
them.
agree they're not, but maybe they
Supervisors,
would, so.
we'll listen to them on the 12th. You know, we got a motion and a second.
Yeah, just to be clear now, on this motion, we're not directing them to come. They don't have to be here. They don't have to do anything. But when our CEO does his due diligence and reports back, that ought to be public. That's public money, and that ought to be public.
With the recommendation, so we'll essentially then just make it a separate vote to do the 38,000, but though it was already in the budget, right? It was already essentially
in the budget. It's already in the budget. This is a direction to the CEO.
But it also includes holding that money back.
Right, so just to confirm.
Until the due diligence is done and reports back to the board.
Right, so just to confirm, the motion is to approve recommendations and direct the CEO to bring the RCD financial information to the board on September 12th at 11 o'clock.
But it also includes to not give them the 38,000. That is part of the motion.
Except what Steve said, unless we're going to push
need
them
it, and then we move everything up.
That's why I'm reading what's on the motion. I want to make sure that was included.
Well, the motion is the recommended action with.
Mr. Chair.
Brian has it.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the motion is to approve the recommended actions as stated in the board letter as items number 1 and 2, and then modified to direct the CEO to bring the RCD financial information to the board on September 12th at 11 a.m. And if in conversations with the RCD needs to have this scheduled sooner to release the funds, the CEO can schedule it sometime before September 12th.
September 12th. Right. Correct. Okay, please
Correct,
vote.
sir?
Yes.
Right, thank you, sir.
I think I'm okay.
Thank you for the clarification. I just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same.
That's correct. And that's approved. Okay, our next item is correspondence 73. The pleasure of the board. But you don't want to take that one? Just get it out of the way.
I moved correspondence agenda if you want to do that real quick.
Okay.
I would note the correspondence agenda is a letter from Leah Lacayo, thanking the board for closing in honor of Hank Lacayo, and also mentions the celebration of his life at Cal State Channel Islands on June 24th, 4 to 7 p.m., and that's open to the public.
Thank you, Supervisor.
It was a very nice letter.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now we go to item 50, it's a presentation of resolution celebrating the launch of dementia-friendly Ventura County. Supervisor Parks.
I was able to attend a Alzheimer's Association conference that they had, and really heard some pretty sobering statistics about the number of people who have Alzheimer's currently, and that number is about going to double in the next 12 years. But our county has been recognized as a dementia-friendly county. I think it's one of only a couple in the state of California, though there's some 80 of them throughout the nation. I'll go ahead and read the resolution, and I think we also have a PowerPoint and a presentation here. Just parts of the resolution because it is really big. Whereas Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death for older adults in the United States, the 5th leading cause in California, and the 4th leading cause of death in Ventura County. I mean, that is sobering right there. 1 in 3 seniors dies with Alzheimer's or another dementia and is the only disease in the top 10 leading causes of death in the United States that cannot be prevented, slowed, or cured. And whereas the issue of Alzheimer's disease and other dementias is of vital importance as the number of people in the United States living with Alzheimer's disease is quickly increasing, and that caregivers of those with Alzheimer's disease and dementia share a significant part of the emotional, financial, and physical responsibility. And I thought this was really interesting, too, that 35% of caregivers for people with Alzheimer's or another dementia report that their health has gotten worse due to the care responsibilities, compared to 19% of caregivers of older adults without dementia. So if you're caring for someone with dementia, you have a higher likelihood that your health also is going to be affected. Whereas responding proactively to the increasing and complex needs of the aging population by creating an informed, safe, and respectful community for issues dealing with Alzheimer's and related dementias and their families, it assists the quality of life for both by becoming friendly, by giving them assistance, and helping it be safe for them. And whereas the Board of Supervisors is directed by the Area Agency on Aging to specifically address the issues of Alzheimer's disease and dementias in their agency's 4-year master strategic plan, and whereas the county's Area Agency on Aging became the 4th organization in the state to be certified partner of the Dementia Friendly America, which is a nationwide effort. And this, I think, is really significant, too. You think about the collaboration of so many different agencies and nonprofits, the Human Services Agency, the Healthcare Agency, Public Health, and many nonprofits, and I'll just read some of those, have come together with the Alzheimer's Association, Long-Term Care Services of Ventura County, ARP, Alma Via, Camarillo Healthcare District, Catholic Charities, Coast Caregiver Resource Center, Conejo Valley Senior Concerns, Home Watch Caregivers of Thousand Oaks, Livingston Memorial Association, Meditech, and Oxnard Families Circle Adult Day Healthcare, Right at Home, Studio Channel Islands Art Center, VC AAA Advisory Council, Ventura County Area Agency on Aging, the Healthcare Agency, as I mentioned, and the Hospital to Home Alliance, and the also mentioned the Human Services Agency, Adult and Family Services, and Ventura County Public Health are all critical in the development of this dementia-friendly Ventura County, and therefore its primary dementia-friendly champion partners. So we're just so happy that they have come together, and we were selected as the to be a dementia-friendly county, and this month is Dementia-Friendly Ventura County in honor of the National Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, which will include events countywide that highlight the importance of education and support. So, and that was just half of this. So I'm going to come on down there, and am I correct? We have a PowerPoint also. Would you like to go ahead and present that, and then I'll come down?
Can you get closer to the mic there?
Manager of Business Strategy and Strategic Planning for the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging. And I'm also the team leader of Dementia Friendly Ventura County. And a year ago, a little more than a year ago, your board directed our agency to take some action. And we have. And as Supervisor Parks said, we are the 4th in the state of California, and we're among 80 communities in the nation that are addressing dementia and making our community more friendly. Okay. Imagine Ventura County as a place where people living with dementia are supported to live a high quality of life with meaning, purpose, and value. As a place where people with younger onset dementia have the opportunity and support to stay at work or to volunteer. Our mission at VC AAA and Dementia Friendly Ventura County is to make Ventura County a dementia-friendly community where persons with Alzheimer's disease and dementia are valued and respected and live as independently as possible, and where their caregivers are supported. This mission will be accomplished by creating opportunities to start the conversation between service providers, many of who are here today, key stakeholders, persons with dementia, and their caregivers about what is needed for Ventura County to become dementia-friendly. Ventura County Area Agency on Aging's role is not to dictate to the county what this is supposed to look like. Our role is to help identify and convene community partners, create collaborations, guide and plan, hold meetings and forums, garner interest in the program, to educate county employees and your board, and to help sustain the momentum through playing a leadership role in the process. But each community has their own self-determination on what they want to see this look like in their community. And our desired outcome is a community and system capacity that enhances quality of life and positive outcomes for people living with dementia and their care partners. The indicators are an increased quality of life, increased community awareness of dementia, increased dementia-friendly business and financial practices, increased access to community life, and meaningful engagement through dementia-friendly services and supports, and increased rates of detection and diagnosis, increased rates of advanced planning, and the reduction of fraud and abuse. So who can make Ventura County dementia-friendly? Everyone can. And the good news is it hardly costs anything.
We like that.
It is word of mouth. It is showing kindness. It is creating awareness. It's education. Pharmacists, retail staff, doctors, first responders, bus drivers, bank tellers, senior staff, volunteers. Throughout the nation, a lot of children are becoming involved in this effort and becoming educated. I just learned today that there's one community that's creating a scout badge for dementia friendliness. This is a brand new thing.
Like part of Boy Scouts.
Yes. So communities can develop strategies to be more supportive and accommodating to those with cognitive impairment. And that would include mild cognitive impairment to moderate cognitive impairment. That includes persons with brain trauma, brain injury, dementia, Alzheimer's disease. And the Dementia Friendly America organization that was created in 2015 out of the White House Conference on Aging came up with a design to address dementia friendliness in various sectors. These are just suggestions. We started with the healthcare sector. We're now expanding into the business sector. Thank you, Camarillo Healthcare District, helping with that. And so these are the different sectors we can approach. Okay. And that leads us to the dementia-friendly core leadership team. And I'm not going to go through and read this, but I would like to introduce the people who've taken time out of their schedule today to be here, and they have all volunteered their time and effort to make dementia-friendly Ventura County a reality. And I'm going to start in the back. Sharon Bick with Meditech. I'm going to stand up. Okay. Bonnie Sabira from Hospital to Home Alliance. Ina Garner from Oxnard Family Circle Adult Day Healthcare. Martha Shapiro from Conejo Valley Senior Concerns. Monica Schrader from the Alzheimer's Association California Central Coast Chapter, who is an extraordinary partner with us, and the chair of that board, Teresa Valco, and also a very strong advocate for Alzheimer's disease. Suze Montgomery from the Ventura Council on Aging and several other organizations. And Christine Martin, who she and her husband own the mobile unit for the virtual dementia tour, and there are still spaces available for county leaders to take the tour tomorrow afternoon. It only takes about 20 minutes. So thank you, Chris. And Kathy Terry from Long-Term Care Services. Sylvia Taylor-Stein couldn't be here with us today, and funding from their agency helps make our tour bus possible. And, Amanda, I'm sorry, glasses. Amanda Gordon from Camarillo Healthcare District. Phil Chandler from Right at Home, President. Kara Ralston, Camarillo Healthcare District. Sue Tatangelo, Camarillo Healthcare District. And Rafael Morales from Catholic Charities.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you did this effort and to bring all the partners together. And thank you all for partnering on this. It's really significant, and I think it's also a model for the state of California that it should be more than one in, 4 in the entire state. But this is the beginning, and I'm really glad that you're able to organize this. Shall we take a picture of all of us together holding the resolution?
And also, I wanted to thank our agency director, Victoria Jump, who could not be here today.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank
It's
you.
really important.
Thank you very much for all of you being here. I know our representative, Bill Canine, is in the audience as well. Thank you for coming. And dementia for our office is extremely important. We've had many meetings with the people here, and just appreciate all your efforts.
And I left someone off, Dr. Renee Higgins. I didn't see her.
Oh.
I apologize. She's an important
Let's
part
give
of
her a
our
good
board.
hand for that. Thank you.
Well, you can face this way with the board.
Together and face us here.
Thank you for taking a photo.
Come a little bit closer, please. Not sure about my.
Hi, good. Nice to see you. I didn't like it.
Okay.
Good. Well, I'll see you all at the senior summit. Yes.
Okay, that's how it is. Let's cheese time.
All right, thank you so much. All right. Yes, and October 21st, I think, is our senior summit.
Well, always on my birthday weekend.
Oh, no. All right. Hope to see you.
Thank you again. Thank you. So our next presentation is a really important one, a presentation honoring Haley Jeffers, our 2017 Ventura County Star Spelling Bee champion.
Yes, this is an exciting day. Haley, please come up to the podium. You're very natural at coming up to the podium, so I know you don't feel uncomfortable.
Thank you.
I just want to say congratulations. I can't believe, well, actually, I can believe that you've done it again. We go way back. My daughter goes to school with Haley, so I've seen you since kindergarten, and I'm just so proud of you. I just wanted to say thank you so much. I know you go to 8th grade at Las Colinas, and that you've won the 2017 Ventura County Star Spelling Bee, earning a trip to the Washington, D.C. in the Scripps National Spelling Bee for the 2nd straight year. Not everyone knows, but Haley is following a family tradition in winning spelling bees. Her brother, Brian, went to the National Bee after winning locally, and her mother, Dr. Lynn Jeffers, who couldn't be here today because she's in surgery, and her uncle won bees as children. And her father, Dr. Andrew Jeffers, who's here today, joined Haley in Washington, D.C. for her last competition, and along with her brother and grandparents. And great job being on the YouTube videos and all the other things that you were doing while getting ready for the spelling bee. And Haley started spelling in 1st grade while listening to her brother practice, and she was competing in the spelling bee since 4th grade and had studied for the bees up to 2 hours a day, which I don't understand with all the other homework you have and so forth, how you can get all of that in. And Haley enjoys the subject in school, particularly science and history. And she has an impressive resume. As you know, middle school tour of champions debate competition and winning the most likely to succeed healthcare award from the Ventura County Startup Weekend. She's the team leader and won $10,000 to fund her startup and the app called Sprightly that provides information to those with food allergies. She will be one of 2 student speakers. Well, you were one of 2 speakers for your promotions, and you did an excellent job with all those family members and students in front of you. And your accomplishments exemplifies the hard work and dedication, commitment to academic excellence and learning. So today, therefore, it will be resolved that Ventura County Board of Supervisors does hereby congratulate and applaud Haley Jeffers on her outstanding achievement in winning the 2017 Ventura County Star Spelling Bee, and wish her the best in her future endeavors. And thank you also for being here on your vacation, because school is out, and so we know how hard it is to get here. But thank you very much, and I'm going to come down and
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here again.
Would you like to say anything?
Say again?
Anything else?
Yeah, it's been a great experience. It's been a really great year for me. I've had a lot of fun, and I'm just really glad that I got the chance to be here and do all of this. And going on to high school next year, I hope I get to continue all of this and keep going. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Well, Haley, our future is in good hands. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I would just say, oh, sorry. Haley, you just, in the startup weekend with all these group of brilliant adults there, you just knocked everybody out. You did a great job. My only question for you is if you're available to mentor 2 young boys, 8 and 6 years old. I have 2 boys, so I'll check with you later.
All right.
All right, we're going to turn around and take a picture. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Thank you, Supervisor Long, for bringing that forward. That was very sweet. Congratulations, Haley.
Yeah, I've known her for a long time. It's awesome.
Hi there.
Okay, so we're going to have you spell a word. No, I'm joking. Right? We could have a dueling competition. We got to have some fun here. All right.
Thank you so much. Our next item here is a public hearing regarding the adoption of the amendment of 2016-19 MOU for 721 Service Employees International to allow on a one-time, non-personal basis continuing employment. So, Jim, take it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Mr. Powers. My name is Jim Dembowski from Human Resources. I'm here to recommend you open a public hearing on an amendment to the Memorandum of Agreement between the county and Local 721 of the Service Employees International Union, that you waive the second hearing on this matter, and that you then adopt the recommended amendment. As you know, the state budget cut the Human Services Agency's operations primarily in the CalFresh and the CalWorks programs. HSA management anticipated those cuts and earlier in fiscal 16-17 proactively moved to mitigate those impacts. Travel, service contracts, IT expansion, and facilities-related expenses were curtailed, and a hard hiring freeze was self-imposed. But even after all those actions by HSA management, it became apparent that it was going to be necessary to cut 26 positions and 26 people. By reassignment and by following the existing MOA provisions, HSA was able to find positions for 22 of the 26 so that they could apply their knowledge, skills, and ability in other ongoing programs. That left 4 probationary employees who, by simply following the provisions of the MOA, would have been slated to go out the door with the proverbial pink slips on July 1st. HSA Management and Human Resources heard the sentiment of your board that to the extent prudently possible, the impacts of budget reductions on staff should be mitigated. And it felt that as a matter of good business, it made sense to retain employee assets who had already passed civil service exams, who'd gone through exhaustive backgrounds, and who had in fact meritoriously performed since coming aboard, particularly when, as is the case in this instance, HSA has vacancies in other funded programs where their knowledge and skills and abilities will be well matched. Labor Relations was asked to reach out to Local 721 to see if we could somehow come up with a manner by which to keep these folks employed. This recommended action would allow the Human Services Agency the one-time opportunity to retain these 4 employees. SEIU fully supports the amendment, and the Civil Service Commission has given its approval. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you, Jim. This is a public hearing, and board members, any questions? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing. I don't have any speakers on this item. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion.
Get a motion and a second. And please vote. Jim, thank you again for excellent work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is item 54 is receive and file a presentation regarding the Ventura County Fire Protection District 2016 annual report.
Oh, where's Captain?
Okay, first. No
Oh,
fire department?
he might be out in the.
Fire department next?
No, hold on. He's here, I'm sure.
Oh, there he is. There's the chief. Putting out a fire. You're next, chief.
We got everybody out here. They've got summer fever.
Thank you,
All
chief.
right. Good morning, Chair Zaragoza, members of the board, Mr. Powers. For the record, Mark Lorenzen, County Fire Chief. On behalf of the 600-plus members of your county fire department, I'd like to personally thank you for allowing me to come before you today and celebrate some of our successes. This is our second annual video report. Last year we went and we moved away from the paper and to video so we could be a little bit more transparent with the public. We do have some items that will be coming up to you guys right now. What I'm going to do right now is give you an introduction and show you it's kind of a lighthearted 3.5-minute segment of our 20-minute annual report. And what it does is it really engages the community and the viewers to take a step inside of our fire department and take a look at what we've accomplished in 2016. With that, if our skilled folks they are ready for it. Sit back and enjoy. And over 130 men and women are starting their workday with the Ventura County Fire Department. In total, we have more than 550 employees who serve the communities of Thousand Oaks, Camarillo, Ojai, Simi Valley, Moore Park, Port Hueneme, and the unincorporated areas of Ventura County. Each of our 32 fire stations goes through a shift change every morning. A crew made up of a captain, engineer, and firefighter complete their shift after a 24-hour day. The following morning, a new crew checks in to take their place. The first order of business at each fire station is morning checks. The crew reviews every piece of equipment on their engine to ensure they're ready at a moment's notice for any emergency. We're good to go, Chief. Great, thanks. In addition to this daily routine, we set out in 2016 to further enhance the services we delivered. The Ventura County Fire Department expanded our advanced life support services, upgraded equipment, and provided more training to prepare our people. We've invested time and energy into wellness and fitness programs. It should come as no surprise that physical training is part of every firefighter's daily routine. This helps build the strength of our crew from the inside out. And they know that if they choose a light weight, then they'd better do a lot of reps, Skipper. A firefighter's job is physically demanding. Ongoing fitness and training programs better prepare our crews. It allows them to operate safely in 45 pounds of protective equipment when responding to a call, like a structure fire or a traffic collision. Even when they're sleeping at night during their shift, it's not uncommon for a radio speaker like this one to go off. And when it does, you may imagine them ready to slide down a pole like this one. Although poles aren't built in our firehouses anymore, this one here at Station 42 serves as a reminder to some of our fire service traditions. We're constantly looking at new ways to connect, train, and prepare our people to better serve the needs of our changing communities. One thing you can find at every fire station is coffee. But watch out, we like it extra strong. As the fire chief, I'm proud of the service we deliver. And in 2016, we worked together to regionalize dispatch, serving more than 823,000 people in the Ventura County area. Now, we can provide better and faster services because our dispatchers send the closest resource, regardless of city boundaries. This is a great example of good government. And for our County Board of Supervisors, the consolidation of dispatch services hit that nail on the head. Ventura County, we're here to serve you all day, every day. We'd like to welcome you through our front door so you can see what your Ventura County Fire Department accomplished in 2016. Perfect. And that leads into about 18 and a half minutes of sharing with the community all the accomplishments that we've seen in 2016. When I stood before you last year, I made a comment that we are 600 employees that are constantly dissatisfied with the status quo. And as I was reviewing our video accomplishments and taking some notes, that is so very accurate and true when I look at how much we've done in 2016 and how much we look forward to doing in 2017. I'll just highlight a couple of those things right now since we're not going to spend the time in looking the remainder of the video. We enhanced our services. That's one of our primary goals. This year we did it by regionalizing our dispatch services and bringing Oxnard Fire Department into our regional dispatch center. Super good example of good government. We implemented a pilot project, a fast response vehicle that's a paramedic and a fire captain that works 4 10-hour days at peak response times to try and anticipate some of our call volumes and some of our peak areas that we need to address. We upgraded one of our fire engines in Ojai to paramedic status. We partnered with the sheriff. This you don't see in many organizations. We partnered with the sheriff and purchased an additional UAV and became one of the very first fire departments in the entire United States to actually legally operate one. And again, it just shows how collaborative we are here in Ventura County. Many hands-only CPR courses, and we implemented the Pulse Point application that really engages our community. Lots of busy going on as far as capital improvements too. New fire station, in Newberry Park, another one under construction in Fillmore. We entered into a new contract with fire engine purchases. We purchased 6 new engines and a ladder truck with Rosenbauer. It was a new bid and a new manufacturer. Those have all arrived. New mobile command units, so we can actually take this unit out to dynamic incidents, whether they be wildland fires, hazmat calls, whatever, and actually offer some command and control from out on the scene. And then another thing we did, which was innovative, was we purchased 2 mobile pumping units. When we go out and train our fire engineers to pump water, there's a huge amount of water that's wasted. We engaged with a manufacturer to design a unit that actually helps us recirculate the water. And with these 2 units that we purchased in conjunction with some help from Metropolitan Water District, we're going to save 10 million gallons of water a year. So really exciting things that have occurred in 2016. Obviously, we couldn't do it without the team that's here and the team that's not here. Truly an amazing staff that is constantly looking for new ways to innovate, new ways to do our business better, and like I said, they're so dissatisfied with the status quo, it's really a perfect fit. I'd like to recognize the staff that was responsible for putting this together, our PIO staff, Heather Sumagaisai, and the remaining PIO staff, also CAPS Media, Jamie and Patrick that are here in the audience, and with that, I request that you receive and file our annual report.
Did you bring any of the sandwiches that you had?
No, I did not.
They look great.
There were about 6 takes. I think I was the only sandwich that was remaining that was whole.
I just want to thank you for your excellent work, Chief, in the fire department. I've always supported the fire departments forever and ever. In fact, I have Rod Thorpe, who's sitting right behind. He was Oxnard Fire Department for many, many years, and he's helping us right now temporarily, here. Since Bill Gallagher was also a firefighter, for Oxnard. But again, you do excellent work, and I just commend you and your staff and your PIO and everybody for the excellent work you do for the county and the other cities too. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you very much for the outreach that you do to the public. That's extremely important that they know that you're there, and the CPR classes and smoke alarms and so forth. It's really appreciative. I was at the Habitat for Humanity's event, and I was able to put all the gear on and hold on to it, and I can't believe how much you guys do in such a crisis. It's like running a marathon, fighting a fire. So just thank you very much for all that you do, and I appreciate it.
Supervisor Parks?
I really enjoyed the firefighter lifting the 2-pound weights. That was my favorite part. But that was a great way to get the message out, and also do appreciate the good work that you do. Thank you.
Supervisor Bennett?
Really like the line that you're very dissatisfied with the status quo. And that's really healthy for an organization. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Powers?
Well, just one thing. It's all been said very well, but one thing that I'm not sure the chief mentioned is talk about team players, the medical examiner's office. In fact, they have a lot of areas where they go to dispatch out to, and fire department just picked it up, said, we'll just do it. No additional funds or anything, just boom. So just appreciate the great team spirit for the county family. Thank you.
And one of the most recent things you're doing, too, is working with the Red Cross and putting out fire smoke detectors. And you did it in Oxnard and Camarillo and some other areas. One life saved, I think, is extremely important by having those smoke detectors.
That's right. So one additional item, you guys were the very first to officially see our annual report that will be posted up on our website immediately following your approval. Thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion. Thank you, Chief. Okay, got a second? Please vote. And that is approved. Thank you again to all.
Thank you for your ongoing support.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is a public hearing regarding adoption of resolution becoming a groundwater sustainability agency for the unmanaged areas within the Santa Paula, Oxnard sub-basins of the Santa Clara River Valley, Groundwater Basin, Las Posas Valley Groundwater Basin, and Pleasant Valley Groundwater Basin. Okay, Public Works.
Chair Zaragoza, board members, Mr. Powers, my name is Arnie Anselm, Deputy Director of Water Resources for the Watershed Protection District, and I'm joined today by Glenn Shepard, our Director, Watershed Protection District.
Okay.
This item is to address the remaining areas requiring management under the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, SGMA. Under SGMA, the county is allowed to be the GSA, the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, for areas where no other local agency has formed a GSA by June 30th, 2017. However, to comply with the letter of SGMA, the county must file to manage these areas prior to that same date, June 30th, 2017. The areas under discussion today are portions of basins where in SGMA, basin management was spelled out in the law, but the boundaries did not encompass the entire basin, leaving potential areas unmanaged. SGMA explicitly exempts the adjudicated area of Santa Paula Basin, but that adjudicated area doesn't completely cover the Santa Paula Basin. Similarly, SGMA names the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency as the exclusive local agency for basins within its boundaries, but the Oxnard, Pleasant Valley, and Las Posas Basin boundaries extend beyond the Fox Canyon jurisdictional areas. If your board decides to manage these areas, different management strategies will apply to each situation. For the Santa Paula Basin, a basin boundary modification can be requested to have those areas managed by the neighboring basins, Mound Basin, Fillmore Basin, and Oxnard Basin. And some of the areas, if technically justified, can be excluded from the Santa Paula Basin. This is similar to what was done in the Ojai Groundwater Basin, where those basin boundaries were matched with the Ojai Groundwater Basin Management Agency and the Upper Ventura River Basin. For the other basins with Fox Canyon, SGMA requires if there are multiple GSAs for a basin, the groundwater sustainability plans must be based on the same data, same methodologies, and use the same sustainable yield. Accordingly, Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency is writing a groundwater sustainability plan for the entire multiple plans, one for each, the Oxnard Basin, the Las Posas Basin, and the Pleasant Valley Basins. That includes the areas beyond their jurisdiction. So if the county picks up these unmanaged areas, they will coordinate with Fox Canyon to implement the management of those areas coordinated with Fox Canyon. So today, staff is recommending your board adopt the proposed resolution for the county to become the GSA for the unmanaged areas of the Santa Paula, Oxnard, Pleasant Valley, and Las Posas Basins.
Thank you, Arnie. This is a public hearing, and I don't have any speakers for this item. Board members, if there's any questions, and not, I'll close the public hearing. And we need a motion. We get a first and a second. Please vote. That's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we have at 11 o'clock, so what do you think, Leroy? We got to wait another 5-10 minutes. We'll take a 5-minute break. 5-minute break? Okay. Okay, we're back from recess, and our next item is 11 o'clock, time certain. Receive and file a study session on homelessness and provide direction to staff.
Good
Christy.
morning.
Good morning.
Chair Zaragoza, members of the
Morning.
board, Mr. Powers. My name is Christy Madden with the County Executive Office. So we've got a little PowerPoint presentation for you today. Waiting for our boardroom to come. There we go. So what we're doing today is the first of what we anticipate being a series of quarterly presentations to your board. We came to you a couple of months ago and reviewed some information on the point in time count and talked a little bit about winter warming shelter. So today what we want to do is to provide some background and present some draft guiding principles for your consideration and seek your input and direction to staff to bring those back at a future meeting. Subsequent items will seek to finalize those principles when we come back, and we will bring forward topics that are of particular importance to county operations when it comes to homelessness. So to provide some context, we'd like to briefly discuss the nexus between the issue of homelessness and the county's broadest policy statement as articulated in your board's mission statement. So the county's mission and values establish the framework within which the county agencies and departments carry out our responsibilities. The framework emphasizes the importance of serving all of the county's constituents equally and with dignity and respect. The guiding principles followed in carrying out our agency's responsibilities are articulated here. When it comes to addressing the needs of the county's constituents that are marginally or unhoused, we follow the above principles that address things like best practices, being customer focused, providing programs that are cost effective. We support an empowered workforce, and we look forward to meeting the resident and business needs by looking prospectively about needs around issues, and we ensure that the programs and services that we provide are cost effective and efficient. The agencies that you see listed here have been meeting periodically to share information and coordinate the services and improve communication around the programs and services that we provide for the homeless population. While there has been general consensus about our respective roles and responsibilities as we sit around the table, it was recognized that the board has yet to enumerate a series of guiding principles around this important subject. So articulating the county's guiding principles would accomplish several things. It would establish a platform from which the county coordinating council's work can continue. It would articulate for our community and government partners that this is a county priority, and it would define the county's roles and responsibilities around this issue. Addressing homelessness is a collaborative effort. It's not going to be solved by any one agency or organization. By clearly defining the roles and responsibilities, it minimizes duplication and confusion by all of the parties who are participating in addressing homelessness, and it provides policy guidance to staff to try and pursue funding and develop innovative solutions around this issue. As I indicated, homelessness is a regional concern. It is a community-wide problem, and it won't be solved by any one agency or organization. The county continuum of care is a multi-agency collaboration that provides policy guidance to end homelessness around the county, and it includes public and private partners and formerly homeless members and people like from Gold Coast Health Plan and others. The CEO's office currently provides staff support to the county continuum of care, and our Human Services Agency manages the Homeless Management Information System and our respective performance in those duties are assessed annually by the continuum of care. So it's not a foregone conclusion that we will always carry out this role. We are being judged on how we perform those duties. Simultaneously, the city managers and the CEO have been discussing and circulating a memorandum of understanding asking local jurisdictions to sign on to the agreement. The agreement seeks to commit participation in the countywide continuum of care, to ask communities to develop a crisis response system to address the homeless people within their respective communities by either developing shelters or having a response that meets the need of the local population in their community, asking communities to pursue housing across the entire continuum of need as articulated in each housing element, and to condition local funds that might be handed out by local cities and the county to use and participate in the homeless management information system as the tool for gauging our progress in ending homelessness. And finally, we are asking communities, if they develop projects that serve homeless, to at least consult with the countywide continuum of care to keep them apprised of things that are being done regionally around the county to serve this population. So at this point, I'm going to turn the podium over to Tara Caruth, who is the principal staff and the point of contact around homeless issues in the county.
Welcome, Tara.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we are going to review some of the key technical areas that we placed within these draft guiding principles to give a little more information about these. So one of the goals is reducing homelessness to functional zero, and communities have coined this term that have made great progress and either ended veteran homelessness or have made substantial progress towards ending veteran homelessness. So what this Community Solutions, which is a technical assistance agency, put together this graphic which shows that your goal is to get to a place where the number of persons experiencing homelessness is less than the average monthly housing placement rate. So it took them from January to June with this in this description to show that in June they only had 3 veterans experiencing homelessness and were housing people at a rate of 3.2 a month. Obviously, this requires that you have the housing resources available to meet the needs of the persons experiencing homelessness in the community. It also recognizes that engagement of some populations takes time to develop trust and find appropriate housing placement. So in some communities, there's been criticism about you didn't end veteran homelessness for there's still 2 homeless vets that are currently declining to engage with services, and there's a plan to continuously outreach and engage those folks, and those resources are available for them.
Could I ask you just a question about
this?
Of course. You know, one of my questions was, could you help us, defining, what functional zero means? So
Right.
I just want to clarify here. So if you start with 16 homeless people and you're able to get 4 of them in a month, into beds, right? You're not at functional zero until you get down to the point where the number of people you have homeless equals the number of people you can service that month.
Right.
And so, while there may be a homeless person, you can also say there is a place for that person available this month. So if you have 10,000 homeless people, right, you're not going to get to functional zero until, but you're housing
It's gonna take
100.
some time.
You got to get and you can house 100 a month, you're not going to get to functional zero until you go from 10,000 to 100.
Right.
Great.
Which is why we also included that we would like to establish some achievable goals that we're striving to reduce the people that are homeless in the community to get to a place where you can accomplish this. And probably the veterans population is the closest we are to this, but we still have a little bit of that unbalance. It's probably a bit like the January.
Not that you don't have any other work to do or that this isn't complicated, but it may actually, one of my thoughts as I was preparing my comments to you on this is that that there may be some value in having some other definitions. For example, we've arrested the growth of homelessness. What's the right term for that? So, it's not growing any longer. All right, so that could be a goal. First, you got to arrest the growth. Then you've got to, you're at such and such a level, which means, you'll be there in X number of years at this rate, or I don't know. But it seems to me that because functional zero is, is a number one, it's a hard term for people to understand, although zero sounds like zero. I understand it now better, and it's one that ever reaching that would be a remarkable achievement if any community actually ever got there, and you might be able to get there for a particular population, but not for homelessness in general. So having some of those other terms might be nice interim goals. As again, when you get on top of other things that are more urgent.
Thank you. The next area is around a high-performing community, which HUD, under the Continuum of Care program regulations, defines this. And these are the components which help you to achieve that designation. The designation does allow local communities to, once you reach this designation, to have local flexibility in how you spend your continuum of care dollars that you receive from the federal government. So it requires that you have annual goals set and achieved in reducing homelessness, whether that's 10%, 20%, or something loftier, that you are progressively reducing the length of time that people are experiencing homeless in your community, either by 10% or aiming to get it to be less than 20 days in any episode, and that you have less than 5% returns in homelessness. This is probably achievable based on our local data. Right now, any of our permanent housing programs, which would include HPRP, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing, our system is showing less than 2% returns to homelessness. But when you add in some of the sheltering programs or some of our outreach programs, our overall is about 10%. Within 2 years is the way the measure looks. And then to get 80% or more of your program serving homeless using HMIS. And right now our challenge is related to some programs that don't receive funding, that are currently privately funded and choose to not use HMIS.
So that's the organizations, 80% of the beds of organizations using HMIS as their system.
And our current, so we don't have year-round, we have very small year-round shelters. Our only largest year-round shelter program is completely privately funded, the Ventura County Rescue Mission, and they don't currently use HMIS. And we're working on some of our permanent housing programs, like VASH vouchers and some others, to get those programs using HMIS. So we are, in a couple of categories, fall below this 80% threshold.
Michael?
Just to put it in a little bit bigger context, and I appreciate your candor in saying that, but to put it the bigger picture on this, I think there's been a great effort and a lot of adoption
Oh, yes.
by
Absolutely.
county, community-based partners, area housing authorities. So, yeah, there's a couple of pockets, but the progress to sort of galvanize all the homeless providers, there's been a lot of progress, I would say.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it's not easy because there's a lot of fear. Oh, a new IT system. Now what do I have to input here and over there? And there's a lot of resistance to it. So the fact that people are getting on board with it now is a big deal, I think.
But Tara, there's some individuals that don't want to in homes. They don't want. They would like to be homeless. Is that a percentage of don't like? Or they that's part of their life and don't want to be helped. Is that a percentage of individuals?
So there is some debate about that, about whether or not people are choosing to be homeless. My argument would be it's hard to gauge that when you don't have something to offer them. Okay. So, and we get into it a little bit later, but we have a lot of people that live in encampments or, are unsheltered. They have not been offered, except seasonally, a program. We also recently, Jennifer Harkey, who works with me, was looking at some of our data on veterans, and there are veterans that the only time they touch our system is when the winter warming shelters open. So they are clearly coming forward for shelter, and when that shelter is not available, they aren't touching the system for services.
They'll go back to the camper.
Right. And so it's...
How do you say that person doesn't then want to just live that lifestyle they want to live?
Yeah.
If I get cold, I'm going to try to get away from being cold. I understand that.
Sure.
It doesn't mean I don't want to change.
Sure.
So when you say that we don't, we offer, I got a friend of mine who has a great family, whole thing. Her brother is probably 60 years old, but living in Washington in the mountains for 30 years. Come on, you have a great job, you come down here, work the family business. No, I don't want to, I just want to live like this. There's a lot of people like that.
That's it.
So, I think you're right, John. At some point, we give them a shot. If they want it, they want it. The reality is I get cold, I want to find a way to get warm. But we live in Southern California, so hopefully 80% of the time I can be out and live that lifestyle. And I guess sometimes, I'm not saying we don't want to try, but I'm saying when a person wants to, we have to admit that's the lifestyle they want to live. When I was a kid, we used to call them hobos, but that's the lifestyle they live. Yeah. And it's not that they don't want to. So I just want to be practical about the people who really need the help and want the help, spend our resources on ones who really want to change, because I can't change somebody who doesn't want to change.
Well, and just to hit a note on that, if you provide work, we provide shelter. There are many that would not do that program. It's a choice that they make, and some would say, "Yeah, I'll work for a clean shower. I need the time. I just got kicked out off of my house," or so forth. So we need to make sure that we don't just assume that providing housing will make them want to get their own housing, versus just relying on our housing always.
So Supervisor mentioned, did we ever get to zero?
Right. The one thing I would say is the social workers and advocates that are out on the street, and including what we hear from some of our law enforcement partners, is we know that for some populations it does take a number of times and multiple attempts to engage someone. It's baby steps. It's not... But the unfortunate part is there could be the time today that Joe says, okay, I'm ready. I will go into shelter. I want to work with you. I'll get into behavioral health. And we say, I'm sorry, we don't have a bed available today. And so then they go back, and maybe that cycle starts over again. So that's the part that I realize that not everyone's ready today to move off the streets or move out of the riverbeds and be housed. But there are people that are ready today, and we don't have a shelter bed to offer.
So it depends on the individual and their circumstances, Okay.
Yeah. The Ventura County benchmarks, and we touched on some of these areas. These are what have been adopted by our local Continuum of Care board, and all of our service agencies that are funded with Continuum of Care Emergency Solutions grant funding are striving to achieve these benchmarks, and their funding is contingent on attempting to achieve them. So right now we have our funded programs, 85% or more of the people served exit or, are housed by the time you're done serving them in that program. I talked a little bit about the returns to homelessness. The length of stay in emergency shelter and transitional housing is challenging because the appropriate housing may not be available. And then we are, to help people become more sustainable or self-sustaining, helping them increase their income, helping them get signed up for the benefits that they're eligible for, whether that's health insurance or other programs. And so this housing and shelter really summarizes what we've just been discussing, that our current system, the shelter and housing doesn't match the demand for those programs. And we're dependent a lot on the private rental market, and landlords are seeking rents that are well above what many of our programs are allowed to pay based on the HUD standards. And the reality is many of our homeless clients have significant barriers to housing, whether that's poor credit, poor rental history, criminal history, having pets, limited income, that impedes their ability to get approved for housing. And then just speaking to the limited housing projects that are in the pipeline that are there aren't units dedicated to this population.
Michael, just real quick, could you explain subpopulations? Saying program's not available for them.
Oh, the program's not available for all subpopulations. So that would be one of the things. A lot of our permanent supportive housing, almost all of it, is dedicated towards people who have a severe and persistent mental illness and are chronically homeless. So we're seeing the population is aging, and a lot of people have chronic health conditions, and maybe they do have depression, but it's not severe enough that it rises to a level that they would be eligible for VCBH services. And so we are finding that, people with certain disabilities don't meet the eligibility criteria of the programs we do have.
So, Tara, this becomes,
yes.
You got a lot of adverse health issues as a result of that.
Right. We're seeing a lot of people with, respiratory issues, mobility issues, other disabilities. One of the big issues is a lot of our housing, the unit that becomes available is upstairs and the person's in a wheelchair. Right. And so we're just, now that we're utilizing Pathways to Home, our coordinated entry system, and having these weekly case conferences, it's really illuminating what the gaps are for people that don't meet the criteria for specific programs, that are highly vulnerable people that are requesting help and asking us to help them find housing.
And eventually that becomes a public safety issue too,
Right.
Overall putting the whole thing into context, yeah. Okay.
You have that data. I would be interested in seeing that,
Okay.
what it is, what that gap
Right,
is.
what those gaps are.
Thank you.
Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So a highlight on prevention. Obviously, when your system lacks the adequate housing and shelter, we just want to emphasize that whenever possible, we should aim to prevent homelessness and keep people in their own housing. Sometimes we are seeing that some of those families specifically that are coming forward for prevention services, the landlords raise the rent to where it's no longer going to be affordable, and so the program is still having to assist them in moving. And the goal is to always provide the lightest touch possible to stabilize them. Services, just again focusing on using HMIS to document the progress and really tailoring all of the services so that we're working together focused on getting people housed. The last time we talked, came to the board, there were some questions about housing first, and so just wanted to spend a couple minutes on this to clarify what we're meaning when we're talking about housing first. All of our programs, because of their the funded continuum of care programs, have had to lower their barriers to meet this criteria in order to stay competitive for the HUD funding. So at the very basic level, it is saying homelessness is a housing problem, that people need shelter, that people are, and we have seen, and from the work I've done in the past, I have seen that people are more receptive to services when they have a safe place to be, that it's a lot more challenging when you don't know where you're going to sleep and where you're going to eat to think about treatment and other services. And getting people off the street as quickly as possible minimizes trauma. And people that have experienced homelessness frequently have experienced multiple episodes of trauma. If it wasn't the reason that got them to the situation they are, that they experienced trauma while they are homeless. The most important thing, I think, is when we're talking about housing first and lowering barriers so that people can access shelter and housing programs, it doesn't mean that those clients or tenants don't have to follow the same rules that any of the rest of us would in rental property, of being a good neighbor, of not destroying property, of paying your rent on time. All of those same responsibilities go along with this. Zero tolerance for children on the street. This is something that the Continuum of Care Board, as well as this board, has articulated, would like to have as a goal. Obviously, addressing, it is a method of prevention to address families with children and reduce the trauma that those children experience if their family becomes homeless. Implementation of this policy effectively will require housing appropriate for some of these families, and they're families that are not able to work, a disabled parent. We have pretty limited supportive housing available for head of household that's disabled, and many of our other shelter and transitional housing programs are targeted towards working families, which we feel is important, but there is this subgroup that we're not meeting the needs of them. Unaccompanied youth, and then families that have higher barriers to housing, limited income, criminal history that creates barriers for them getting into housing. And then lastly, touch on homeless encampments, which we've also spoken to a bit, that we know that our Watershed Protection District is spending funds annually to eliminate encampments on their property in order to comply with waste discharge requirements. And the cycle is ongoing. The camps repopulate as quickly as they address it, or they move to private property. We're being called upon to address those issues. And unless we have other solutions, we're just following these encampments around and cleaning up after them, whether they end up in the watershed and other areas, and obviously have environmental impacts. And we are suggesting that some further conversation in maybe our next quarterly session come forward with some more information about encampments and how we are addressing those, and some, streamlined process for addressing those issues. So then we included in a couple of slides here, the draft guiding principles, and wanted to, if you have other suggestions or items that you would like us to work on, to bring back those for your approval.
I recall reading yesterday, and it might have been one of these, that a policy or a principle would be if we have a vacant county facility that we would consider that for homeless folks. Do you have that on this list? And does anyone know where I read that? It was in, I read so many documents between yesterday and today.
And did we include it? Yes. Oh, we did. Oh, number 17.
17.
That's on another page. Could you flip it to the next screen then?
Yeah, there's 20 guiding principles.
Yes.
Oh, I see. 1 through 10 and 11 through 20.
And can I have confirmation? So these guiding principles have been what we've had for the last 10 years?
No, this is a new draft of guiding principles that we've been working on with the Homeless Coordinating Council, bringing to you all for your feedback and discussion so that we can bring back a final.
Okay, because I attended I'm excited for the parole. They're doing a results first initiative, in which they're looking at data-driven information as to where we're putting costs. And I like to not have our departments work as silos, but work together and share information. Mm-hmm. And part of me has a hard time saying, yes, fund all, when not all is as successful as it could be or should be. So my request is to make sure whatever we are funding, that we look at the data and make sure that we are result driven, because I think that's ultimately our goal. I agree on the fact that this functional zero is maybe not as clear to everyone. And so we need to have principles that is clear to everyone. You've had the zero for the last 10 years, and I don't think that worked for one way or another. Not because you haven't tried, but because certain things aren't working. I also know that we're having a tour of the Orange County, 2 different sites on August 16th. So I'm looking forward to seeing what is working in their county as to transitional and bringing in behavioral health along with that. I just went to the Coalition Action site and seeing what they're up against with our homeless population and coming in for showers, and only being open Monday through Friday, and certain pantries and so forth. So I understand what we're talking about, but I get very concerned with these 20 guiding principles and how we lose our focus because we're just focusing on so much. And my request would be to condense these items so that we can really pinpoint what is successful and what initiatives we really need to focus on for the best. Because like we were saying with the warming shelters for the last 3 years, that's not working as well. But okay then, are we focusing more on the shelters or housing, those funds? If that's a more successful program, then let's focus on those. So I'd really like to understand what this is rating. And where are we more successful? I think that would be something I would really like to understand and see, so we can learn from that.
Tara, how about the Ventura River Haven program? Is that working?
The River Haven program is operated by Turning Point Foundation, and it does work. It does have some challenges because they don't have facilities on site, so they have to drive people into Ventura for showers and other programs. They're dome structures,
and
they're in need of pretty significant repairs. So Turning Point is working on that now. And I think they're in conversations with the city of Ventura on how to improve or, revive that program a bit. But they are seeing people transition out into housing. So the people who are utilizing the program
Yeah.
are having some success.
I was going to ask that, how many people have transitioned permanently from there?
I can get you that information.
Yeah, I think that'd be
I don't have
something.
it off the top of my head, but I can get it for you.
Michael?
Do we have this, do we have a hard copy of this, or is it on a particular page? I'd like to.
Yes.
Yeah. It got sent out, it's like in the
example?
second addendum of all the information that we've
Second
got.
addendum?
Yes, I don't know why, but for some
Yeah.
reason, this meeting, we've gotten a lot of addendums late. And so it's kind of frustrating as
Thank
a board
you.
member to go, well, which one is it and where do we find
Yeah.
it and so forth, so.
One of the, if you can go back to the 1 through
Yes, of
10,
course.
because I just don't have it in front of me right now, and I don't have a hard copy. One of the things that I was requesting is yearly we put together recommendations for many different grants, home fund, HUD, all that. And one of the discussions that we had as a result of that is, do we want to put all our eggs in this, let's get this homeless issue taken care of, instead of giving money for a fire truck or something that is not as essential as a shelter? Do we want to focus on that? And I don't see that as a guiding principle. I don't know if that would be, but I believe we decided we'd have that discussion here at this workshop. And just wondering if you have some thoughts on that, or.
Yes, from staff's perspective, we would very much welcome that prioritization of use of those funds. But I think there was some conversation that was going on with the partner cities to make sure that they were aligned with
Correct.
that before we finalize that decision.
Are those discussions happening?
Yeah, I believe they are in Supervisor Long's district. I don't know.
Continue.
Oh, through the MOU.
They're happening at the Continuum of Care, which has 4 cities represented, as well as the city managers meeting.
Okay,
Right.
because that comes to us pretty regularly, and I don't know if we've finalized it even to date. Do you know where that stands?
The MOU is
Did
not
we
final.
approve and finalize that list?
Michael, you said. yeah.
Or did we pull it off?
Sorry, which, are you talking about the MOU or the list? I'm sorry, I want to make sure.
The list of all the different grant recommendations. you
Oh,
know.
the grant recommendations.
So the recommendations for the HUD entitlement funding were finalized by your board in May. And in respect for our city partners who get this funding, that conversation needs to happen now so that when these recommendations come to your board next year, they are all on board. We have 3 cities specifically that partner with us that use CDBG money to fund city programs and services. So we want to give them enough notification that they can make alternate plans to cover that in their
So
subsequent
that
budget.
dialogue is going on.
Yes.
But this is our county, this is our draft guiding principles, and it seems appropriate if we want to focus, and I think back on the other page was the one about collaboration with the cities and all, number 12. Maybe it would be something along those lines that we will work to see that grant fundings that are focused on the essentials of providing shelter when there is that opportunity.
Absolutely. And I'd like to draw your attention to item number 20. There's been considerable conversation amongst members of the coordinating council about using data and making data-driven decisions. So this is something that I think could really lend some useful information so that we can track what is succeeding in addressing this issue.
And that earlier slide in the PowerPoint, which discussed everyone being on that same system, that would help achieve that, correct? And I believe you said the winter warming shelter is not on that system?
It is.
It is on it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's only one of the small seasonal shelters that's not currently using HMIS, and we're in conversations with them, but the other seasonal shelters are, including the West County winter warming shelter, the largest one,
Okay.
is using HMIS. HSA has been assisting with that data entry for the past 2 seasons with the private operator, but that's going to be a condition moving forward.
So Michael, you've been working with the cities, right, and city managers on that?
Yes.
And I think that's important.
And part of the spirit of that is, along the lines of the Continuum of Care Board, is to make sure the cities and the counties are on the same page and everybody's doing their part. And for example, Ventura and Oxnard might be concerned if they open a year-round permanent shelter, that folks from other cities are going to, oh, great, well, we'll just go over there now. And they want to make sure that every city, they might not need a shelter, but they might need to have homeless services for them so they can address the homeless issues in their own city. And so
that's been very difficult, but you're working with them.
We are.
Well, and to make a note, I appreciate the meeting that we had and reviewing where the funding was going to, and the majority is going to permanent housing. Those that funding that aren't, my recollection is fire engines and code enforcement for the cities. And so that's something that we have to have a discussion with the cities, is how else will they be able to find that funding?
Right, exactly. And giving them that heads up and
Yes.
and getting hopefully their support that we need to, that these funds can be used to shelter people.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett?
Thank you. You asked for our feedback on your guiding principles, and one, I appreciate that trying to work with the cities. I appreciate your position that probably the county ought to have some guiding principles, just because it's going to make it easier for you to suggest, coordinate, try to get the cities to be on board. It's a lot easier to do that. One. Two, I certainly appreciate the comments about trying to keep it, concise, but at the same time, being there at those meetings, there are so many different issues that you have to have a policy on. What's our policy on, what's our discharge policy? Well, we should have a discharge policy, and we would hope the cities would have a discharge policy. You kind of can't consolidate that. It doesn't mean that we're focusing all of our energy right there. But so I think there is some. I just want to speak. There's some value to being comprehensive enough that you've got the guidelines. With those things being said, these are the. I had one question about functional zero, which I was already able to ask. The other question I have is in item 4: establish a governance structure within the county accountable for the county's programs. I just would like you to review for all of us, what is that governance structure in the county? Do we have it? Do we have it ready, or is there some part of it still evolving? Right?
I think it was staff's intent that get this board to acknowledge the role of the county coordinating council. We were speaking internally within the county family. Exactly. And we have the group that we mentioned on the earlier slide that has been getting together informally. And so formalizing and recognizing that group as the entity who's helping to facilitate that, I think, is what.
That's what I assumed it meant, and certainly from my input, that's what I would be.
Mike has additional.
To that point, Supervisor, just so you know, we started this process 18 months ago, something like that, a long time ago, and HSA really took a lot of the laboring oar and organizing the data, because there's a lot of data, and sort of mapping out, because the number of agencies in the county that provide some level of homeless service is pretty remarkable. I remember Todd Howitt out there, he was pretty shocked when he sat there and look at all these services, and most people didn't know what each other department was doing or didn't know how to communicate with it. So there was a lot of communication going on, but we could do more. And so that was sort of the purpose of it. At least before we look external, let's get our arms around internally what we're doing, and that's the spirit of the coordinating council.
The other issue in terms of governance structure that I would just like to touch base on, the idea of we needed a point of contact, because what we were getting were cities contacting different departments based on what they needed, or what was going to be best for them. And we had some people pretty masterful at doing that. And one part of the county wouldn't know what the other part was. And so this idea of having the CEO's office be the major contact, I still completely support that. What I feel like I'm also looking, though, at this governance structure is HSA is still doing an enormous amount of the actual work in the field. I would, in an ideal world, I'd love to see some kind of parallel leadership there, so that you get all the benefits of the CEO's office, and all the benefits of HSA's experience in the field suggestion. I don't have a solution there. I just want to introduce that kind of concept. It strikes me as, in the long run, being healthy for us moving forward. Clearly, for everybody from the outside, if they come in and they want to talk homelessness, they've got to go through the one point of contact, which is the CEO's office. So I just offer that as a perception that I see. In item 7, it says ensure that services and housing are provided throughout the county, and I have a little concern that I don't know how the county ensures housing, and so a slightly different word may be better than ensure, encourage, that kind of thing, because it's the cities that are going to play a significant role in that. In item 10, it says make more housing available at all levels, right? And again, the cities, according to our guidelines for orderly development, et cetera, are the major focus for urban development. And so the housing is primarily a city focus here. And then when it says at all levels, so I have a little bit of concern with the first half of 10, but then when it says at all levels, this is a document, a guiding principles for ending homelessness. I'm not sure saying building high-end housing has anything to do with that. So I don't see any reason why we'd say at all levels. I would say, building more housing, focused on that entry-level person, focused on that the single-room people, the specific housing that we need for the homeless. Item 12, my suggestion is that it is clearly one of the most important things, and that is collaborate with the 10 cities within Ventura County. Just for emphasis, I would move it up towards the top instead of having it be at item 12. 13, use the Ventura Continuum of Care as a shared resource and key administrator providing policy guidance throughout the county. I would also move that up. I mean, our big challenge with homelessness in Ventura County has just been completely hit and miss, and this shot here and that shot there. So those two things, coordinating with the cities and then having the continuum of care, have that leadership there. And then my final point is on item 15. County has zero tolerance for unsheltered children living on the street or places not meant for human habitation, and will, to the extent feasible, take every effort to address their needs. I would suggest we change that word to prioritize their needs. And the reason I say prioritize is that we just say that is the most important, because if you can break the kids from homelessness, you can break the multi-generational homelessness that we're starting to see. I mean, we're now starting to see kids growing up in homelessness and then being homeless, and so in my mind, I would elevate it from address to prioritize. Thank you very much. I know. I mean, I still think back to when they came and said, you need a 10-year plan to end homelessness, and it was just like, what a, it was not viable. This is much more appropriate, functional. It's still the most, certainly one of the top 2 or 3 challenges that local governments, local communities, and that our country faces. So I don't. There's no easy answer here. I know no matter what you do, there will be a ton more left undone than what we can get done. But I just want to compliment everybody in the county government, and I see you two here. I see, your staff. I see Barry and Melissa back there in HSA. But you guys, the people that want to tackle this are real heroes. They're tackling such a huge, challenging thing. Thank you very much.
So I believe that formalizing the coordinating council is probably one of the first steps, as Supervisor mentioned, to get everybody together, And I want to commend you too, and for the excellent work that you're doing, and also, Michael, working with the city managers and formulating a plan to help us with the homelessness.
I'd like to also, on item 6, maybe that is where we can talk about what you pointed out is we've got that huge gap, to be able to identify, you say, matching homeless persons with housing and support they need. to remain stable, but to maybe emphasize in there also to see that we can fill that gap. And then also on item 16, I don't think the word willing might not be the right word. County agencies will not willingly discharge persons from public institutions into an unsheltered homeless situation.
Right, and part of the reason we used willingly is because there are patients that leave against medical advice. There are situations where, to the best,
right, the best of our ability.
Efforts,
that's how I would put it.
Okay,
to the best of our ability.
Okay.
Because I mean, sometimes you have no choice, and
right,
it's
out of
our
our control.
willingly doing it. But yeah, to the best of our ability, we won't. And I also think not just of public institutions being hospitals, but of jails too. Right.
Okay.
And I agree with Supervisor Bennett's suggestions too.
Okay, then, and coordination of the resources is extremely important.
If you also can find somewhere to throw in with that collaboration of cities or wherever the concept of where we will actually focus our grants where possible on on homelessness.
Michael?
Yes, and with the cities doing the same.
Yeah, and I think what's happening with the continuum of care, too, is that we're identifying the resources. Tara did a great presentation on what do we have out there. Here's what we have. We have this, great. Here's where we have the gaps. And that's where we can help target the funding for the cities on their CDBG funds or other cities who have other funds that they're interested in. We've had some of those discussions.
Identifying the needs.
And I also want to recognize people are coming together, and it's great. And the area housing authorities are a big part of that. And I really appreciate Mike Nye being here from the area housing authority as well. Partnership. So thank you.
Okay, so any additional questions?
Not an additional question, just sort of an overall, overarching thing to try to, from a policy standpoint, the idea of trying to define our way out of the problem, define our way into progress. Some people really spent considerable time going to Congress. I mean, first, we should recognize that starting in 1980, federal funding for housing in this country was cut by 75%. 75%. It's not a surprise that for the last 4 decades we've essentially seen a dramatic increase in the amount of homelessness. When you have that massive of a cut in terms of resources, that's one thing that you're going to get. And then this whole idea, I think, has been wrongheaded that says we have to focus on the chronic people. And that, this housing first, and then the definition being that the people most likely to die are the ones that should get that housing first, makes us, by definition, not focus on all of the other factors that are out there. And this is really a systemic, big-time problem. And that we will look back, 20 years from now, we'll look back to this idea of housing first, and the chronic homeless are the ones that have to get it, and the people that are going to die on the street are the ones that have to get it first, as just another one of those misguided attempts that distracted us from the really true systemic situation that's out there. That's why I think it's so important that we prioritize those young children to try to break that cycle that we're seeing over and over again. So I'm not saying housing first isn't good, but the idea that it just becomes the exclusive focus, which is what some people have tried to do, is going to distract us from the systemic problem. Thank you.
Supervisor Lund?
Yeah. I already talked about the results first, and I was hoping that we were going to cut this down some, and that you were going to actually come back, that we weren't giving you all this information. But since we're doing that, I don't see the economic part of this as trying to get people back into workforce. I understand we're dealing with behavioral health issues and so forth, but many of them, like they're going, the coalition is on site trying to get a job or go to college to get a job. So I guess I don't see any of those principles in here that we're trying to do economic growth here and help them get back on their feet. I understand putting a house or a shelter over your head is great, but there's all these issues of, the other issues that are going on, this job training, the breakdown of the family, gangs and crime. There's many reasons why they are homeless, and I would just hope that we would focus on the reasons why they're homeless and try to get them out of that situation. And one, as we know, with the apartments and the housing as it is. So if you're supposed to line out all these different principles, please include the economic part of it.
And we are measuring that and tailoring programs to address income and employment. So absolutely, we can include that information.
Condense.
Sure.
So
And there
Mr.
may
Park-
be, we can look at if we can put it in some sections and put some of the pieces so that it can be condensed, because there are a lot of areas. So.
There are a lot of areas.
A lot of overlap in the items, so we can see if we can.
Supervisor Park.
Just thinking about what's happening in Los Angeles County, they've had a 23% increase after they've put all this money, and I know that more is coming and resources for it. But of that, they're seeing a 61% increase in the youth. And, while we talk about we're focusing, we want to make sure no children have to stay in a shelter. Youth there, I think, is defined by 16 to 24-year-olds.
Right.
But just a huge surge in young adults. I don't know if we're seeing that here too, but that's something Supervisor Long talks about, how to get them on a path. Sometimes they need more guidance than what they're getting. But those are really important aspects, and obviously part of that whole person care and the continuum of care that we're looking at.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion.
File?
Move to receive and file.
Okay.
I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all of the members on our Homeless Coordinating Council. We pulled this together collaboratively, and I gave them all very short time frames to review and comment on the materials that we provided to you. And I will tell you, there is a lot of passion in this county for addressing this issue. So we look forward to coming back and refining these recommendations for your review and approval.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work, and also thank Michael for working with the city managers and regional issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please vote. Okay. Okay, that's approved. Our next item is the item 57, and that's the adoption of resolution continuing water's standby charge unchanged for fiscal year 2017-18, Ventura County Water Works District Number 1, Moore Park. You're on.
Good afternoon, Chair Zaragoza,
Good
Supervisor
afternoon.
Foy, Supervisor Long, Supervisor Bennett, Supervisor Parks, and Mr. Powers. I am Michaela Brown, Ventura County Public Works Agency Director of Water and Sanitation. This is a public hearing regarding the adoption of a resolution establishing water standby charges for fiscal year 2017 through 2018 for Waterworks District 1 in Moore Park. Waterworks District 1 provides water services to the city of Moore Park and surrounding unincorporated areas. Section 55501.5 of the Water Code authorizes a county waterworks district to establish a water standby charge in areas where water service is available, whether such services is used or not. Waterworks District 1 established a standby charge for this area and applied consumer price index adjustments until fiscal year 96-97, when the charge was established at $46.82 per acre. Water standby charges are subject to Prop 218 unless charges already existed on July 1st of 1997. As such, we do not recommend an increase in water standby charges for fiscal year 2017 through 18. Therefore, Prop 218 does not apply. We recommend your board continue to charge $46.82 per acre, and we request your board adopt the resolution attached to the staff report approving the schedule of water standby charges and approving the continued collection of the charges described therein on the annual general county tax roll.
Thank you. Any questions?
Make a motion.
A motion. Please vote.
Thank you.
And that's approved. Thank you. Our next item is 58 is a public hearing regarding proposed service charges for an adoption of resolution to continue service charges for fiscal year 17-18 for County Service Area 14, street lighting and various unincorporated locations, street sweeping in the Casa Conejo and Lynn Ranch area. Tabine.
Good afternoon, Chair Zaragoza, honorable board members, CEO Mike Powers, Tabine Cosio, Director for the Central Services Department of the Public Works Agency. I will be presenting agenda items 58, 59, 60. The three items relate to a special assessment approval by your board for the three county service areas. The agenda item before you presently is a recommendation for your board to hold a public hearing to hear the objections and protests for the report for County Service Area 14, fixing the charges for fiscal year 2017-18. And at the conclusion of that hearing, to adopt and continue the charges for fiscal year 17-18. CSA 14 provides street sweeping services for Casa Conejo and Lynn Ranch area, as well as street lighting services for various unincorporated areas of the county. The special assessment charge before your board today is specific to the Casa Conejo and Lynn Ranch area for street sweeping services. Casa Conejo currently pays $19.72 per year, whereas Lynn Ranch is $31.62 per year. Staff has determined the current service charges are sufficient to cover next year's street sweeping services, so we are requesting that your board continue the existing charges. The report was filed with the clerk of the board and made available to the public on June 1st. To date, we have not received any protests or objections.
Thank you, Tabine. This is a public hearing. I don't have any speakers either, so any questions of the board? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion. I always feel like this guy should be telling us about some kind of negotiation with labor or something.
Okay. A motion. And we got a second. Please vote. Thank you, Tabine. And that is approved. Then item 58 is again another public hearing regarding the charges, adoptions for residents to continue service charges for service area number 3.
Yes, item 59 is conduct a public hearing for County Service Area number 3, Camp Chaffee Road. Camp Chaffee Road provides road improvement and maintenance services for the non-county portion of Camp Chaffee Road, including Sky High Drive. The special assessment for this area is $60 for improved lots, $30 for unimproved lots. Staff is now recommending increases. We are requesting that you continue the existing service charges.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Open the public hearing. I don't have any speakers, so any questions of Tabine? If not, I'll close the public hearing and please vote. Got a first and a second. Okay. And that is approved. Okay, we've got item 60. It's a public hearing regarding service charges and adoptions of resolution to continue service charges for fiscal year 17-18 for counties of service number 4, Oak Park.
Yes, item 60 is to conduct a public hearing for CSA 4 Oak Park and to continue the service charges currently in place. CSA 4 provides street lighting, community emergency response, street-related services, and anticipated to provide volunteer policing services pending a few more action items for CSA number 4. The existing service charge is $17.28 per unit. Staff is recommending continuance of the existing charge.
Thank you, Tabine. This is a public hearing. I don't have any speakers, board members. If not, I'll close the public hearing. Please vote. Okay. Did everybody vote? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Tabine.
Thank you.
Okay, item 61 is a public hearing regarding proposed sewer service rates and sewer standby charges for fiscal year 2017-18, adoption of resolution establishing collection of sewer service charges, sewer standby charges for fiscal 2017, and a 10% increase in sewer service charges unless written protests from the majority of the affected property owners are received, and approval of continued collection of sewer service charges and sewer standby charges for 17-18. And this is County Service Area 30, Nyland Acres Sewer System. You're on.
Good afternoon, Chair Zaragoza, members of the board, CEO Powers. I am, for the record, Michaela Brown, Ventura County Public Works Agency Director of Water and Sanitation. I will be presenting the next 5 items on the agenda, items 61, 62, 63, 64, and 65. Item number 61. This is a public hearing regarding proposed sewer service charges and sewer standby charges for fiscal year 2017-18 for County Service Area 30. County Service Area 30 provides sanitation services for the Nyland Acres community. The department is responsible for operation and maintenance of the Nyland Acre sewer collection system, and the sewage from the system is transported to the City of Oxnard for treatment and disposal. Staff at this time recommends an increase in the sewer service charge of 10% from $32.70 to $42.57 per month per residential unit equivalent. This increase is necessary to cover increased costs, primarily due to the increases of sewage treatment charges from the City of Oxnard of 30% in fiscal year 2016 and 10% in fiscal year 2017. Staff at this time does not recommend an increase in the sewer standby charge. We recommend your board continue that charge of $30 per parcel annual sewer standby charge that has been in effect since 1996 and is therefore exempt from Proposition 218. We request your board adopt the resolution attached to the staff report approving the schedule of sewer service charges and sewer standby charges for fiscal year 17 through 18 and approving the continued collection of the charges described therein in the annual general county tax rolls. To date, we've only received 1 protest letter.
Thank you. And this is a public hearing, open public hearing. I don't have any speakers. Board members?
Make a motion?
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Got a motion and a second. Please vote. Okay, that's approved. And next item is public hearing regarding proposed sewer service charges for sewer connection fees, installment payments, and adoption of resolution regarding the continued service charges of sewer charges for sewer connection fees, installment payments for fiscal year 17-18. And this is the El Rio sewer collection system.
This is a public hearing regarding the proposed sewer charges and sewer connection fees for fiscal year 2017-18 for County Service Area 34. County Service Area 34 provides sewage collection services to El Rio, the Strickland Track, and the Juvenile Justice Complex, and transports the sewage to the City of Oxnard for treatment and disposal. Staff does not recommend any increases in the sewer service charges for fiscal year 17-18, and staff recommends continuing collection of sewage connection fee installment payments on the county tax rolls. Prop 218 does not apply to sewer connection fees. We request your board adopt the resolution attached to the staff report approving the schedule of sewer service charges and sewer connection fee installment payments for fiscal year 17-18 and improving the continued collection of the charges described therein on the annual general county tax rolls.
Thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing. I don't have any speakers. Board members?
Motion.
Motion. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Please vote. Okay, and that's approved. Item 63 is adoption resolution continuing water standby charges unchanged for fiscal year 17-18 for the Ventura County Water Works 17 Bell Canyon.
This is a public hearing regarding the adoption of a resolution establishing water standby charges for fiscal year 17-18 for Waterworks District 17 Bell Canyon. Waterworks District 17 provides water services to the unincorporated area of Bell Canyon. Section 55-501.5 of the Water Code authorizes a county waterworks district to establish a water standby charge in areas where water service is available, whether such service is used or not. Waterworks District 17 established a standby charge for its area, applied the CPI adjustments until fiscal year 96-97 when the charge was established at $46.82 per acre. Water standby charges are subject to Proposition 218 unless the charges already existed on July 1st, 1997. Consequently, we do not recommend an increase in water standby charges for fiscal year 17-18, and therefore Prop 218 does not apply. We recommend your board continue to charge $46.82 per acre. And as such, we request your board adopt the resolution attached to the staff report approving the schedule of water standby charges and approving the continued collection of the charges described therein on the annual general county tax roll.
Thank you. And this is, again, a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. I don't have any speakers on this card. Supervisors?
Close this motion.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Please vote.
You recall Bill Canyon was voted
approved.
to not allow for the raise. They protested, correct, successfully.
Item 64 is a public hearing again, proposed the sewer service charges and standby charges for fiscal year 2017 and adoption of a resolution. This is for North County Sewer Connection System.
CSA 29 operates and maintains the wastewater system for the North Coast communities of Solomar Beach, Faria Beach, Muscle Shoals, and Seacliff. All sewage is pumped to the City of Ventura sewer system for treatment and disposal. Staff at this time recommends an increase in the sewer service charge of 10% from $128.27 to $141.42 per month per residential unit equivalent. This increase is necessary to cover increased costs, primarily due to the increases of sewage treatment charges from the City of Ventura of 8.75% and expected increase of replacement projects. CSA 29 is dependent upon sewer service charges to finance the operation and maintenance of this more than 30-year-old system. Staff recommends your board adopt the resolution attached to the staff report authorizing us to collect the charges as part of annual general county tax rolls.
Thank you. Again, this is a public hearing. I'm going to open a public hearing. I don't have any speakers. Board members?
This motion.
Motion. I'll close the public hearing. Please vote. Okay, that's approved. Item 65 is public hearing, proposed service charges increase for fiscal year 17-18, adoption of resolution for sewer charges and so forth. And this is for Piru sewer system, please.
Yes, and I want to emphasize that this is Waterworks District 16, Piru, and I apologize.
I know you were going to share that.
The rules and regulations for the Waterworks District is titled this big, long, unwieldy that includes all of the water districts. So this is a public hearing regarding proposed sewer service charges and sewer standby charges for fiscal year 17-18 for Waterworks District 16. Waterworks District 16 encompasses 300 acres and provides sanitation services to approximately 430 customers of the community of Piru. As you know, the district has been struggling financially for some time. Due to the economic slowdown, expected housing growth in Piru did not occur, and new customers who would have provided additional revenue from connection fees and service charges have not materialized. As a result, the district continues to struggle to cover its operating costs. Staff at this time is recommending an increase of 10% in the district's sewer service charges and no increase in the current sewer standby charges. In addition, staff recommends that the board approve continuing the collection of these charges as part of the annual general county tax rolls.
Thank you. Again, this is a public hearing, and I don't have any speakers. Board members?
I'd like to just say thank you very much for going to the PNC and speaking to them about this.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
So I'm going to close the public hearing. Motion? Please vote. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next item we have closed session, and at 1:30 we have APCB. So we're going to closed session, and do you expect any announcements?
There may be an announcement.
Okay, we'll go to closed session. And we have a couple of announcements, Leroy, and then Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First announcement on item 71, which was potential litigation. On that matter, the board authorized the fire district to initiate litigation against Era Energy and California Resources Corporation for the recovery of fire suppression costs related to the Solomar fire on December 25, 2015. And the board ratified the fire chief's action of authorizing the California Attorney General to file a complaint on the district's behalf. And the vote of the board was 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Leroy. And Mr. Powers, we have another announcement.
Thank you, Chair Zaragoza, board members. I'm very pleased to announce that on a unanimous vote, the Board of Supervisors has concurred with my recommendation to appoint our current Assistant Public Defender, Todd Howarth, to serve as our next Public Defender effective July 2nd.
Congratulations, Todd. Todd, would like to share. Would you like to share anything?
Just a few more points, and then I'll thank you, Chair. Sorry. So just to be clear about it, though, this followed a nationwide recruitment. So, and I really want to thank Jose Bernard from our office, HR specialist, who conducted this. We also had 2 outside public defenders from Contra Costa and Orange County to come, and I think it made it a really robust process, and it turned right around. And lo and behold, right here in our own public defender's office, we have a great leader. Todd's been a standout. He also has tried over 100 jury trials, which, as attorneys know, that's a tremendous amount, including some of the most challenging, complex cases. We just love his passion. I mean, he's a public defender's public defender. He's all about equal justice. And the other thing that he's about and the office is about is looking at root causes. What challenges do people have in their lives, and how he can turn them around. So anyway, I couldn't be more excited with Todd's appointment. Congratulations, Todd.
Todd, do you want to share a couple of words?
Thank you very much, Chair Zaragoza, Board, CEO, Mr. Powers. This is the honor of my career. I couldn't be more proud to represent the Office of the Public Defender. As I explained to all of you, you should be so proud of the women and men that make up your Public Defender's Office. They are extraordinary, and it would be my honor, and I'm humbled by this opportunity that you've given me, and I just want to thank all of you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So we are going to adjourn our, go ahead, any comments? First of all.
Go forth and do good work.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So we are adjourning the Board of Supervisors meeting, and so our APCD's next.
I didn't mean